Chapter 51. It was said that nature was very cruel. Only the fittest survived. Just like the giraffes with short necks, they were gradually eliminated because they could not eat enough food or failed to find a mate. The remaining ones were all giraffes with long necks. Now, the ones eliminated by nature were ordinary people. Zombies were slowly evolving, and so were superpowered people. Only ordinary people stayed in the same place. Sooner or later, the number of ordinary people would gradually decrease because of various reasons. Then, in order to adapt to the environment, most of the newborns would be superpowered people. Maybe there would be only superpowered people left in the world. Xiao Qing was shocked by her own imagination. She felt that her imagination was likely to come true. If it went on like this, maybe one day, the world would become what Xiao Qing thought it would be. The return trip was faster than when they had come. Even though they had spent most of their time hunting zombies, the time they returned was much earlier than they had expected. The closer they got to the base, the more worried Xiao Qing was. The air dye was too weak. It was very difficult to disguise as a normal person and enter the base. However, she couldn't leave the air dye outside. The more she thought about it, the more worried Xiao Qing became. They were a search team that had just returned to the base. Superpowered people didn't need to go through the observation period, but superpowered people from outside had to go through the inspection. What's more, the air dye couldn't disguise as a superpowered person. If they really wanted to disguise, they could only disguise as a superpowered person with speed or strength. However, during the physical examination, Dummy was still easily exposed. Xiao Qing was so worried that she had a headache. She didn't dare to take Dummy to have a try. If Dummy's identity was discovered, she would walk into a trap and be caught like a turtle in a jar. Xiao Qing wanted to let the air dye wait outside, but when she saw the air dye's ignorant and dependent eyes, she couldn't say anything. What was the difference between leaving the air dye outside and abandoning it? After thinking about it, Xiao Qing finally came up with an idea when they were about to arrive at the base. This survivor base was the largest one in the area, so many people came to seek shelter every day. There was a long line outside the base. Xiao Qing and the others got out of the car outside the gate and handed the car over to the inspector before walking inside. As paranormals of the base, Xiao Qing and the others naturally didn't need to line up. They could directly enter after flashing their badges. Yan Hongqing, on the other hand, had to be tested. "Sister Qing, you're back?" The young man working at the reception desk said enthusiastically. His special ability was related to his sense of smell, which was not very useful in combat, so he was arranged to receive the special ability users coming in and out. "Well, my teammates awakened their superpowers during the battle. I also brought back 2 of my relatives, who are also superpowered." Xiao Qing said, "Where should we go for the test?" The teenager immediately looked envious. There were also some ordinary people who suddenly awakened their abilities in dangerous situations. These awakened abilities were often more useful, unlike him. "Just test it inside." Xiao Qing nodded and led the others in. The young man saw that there were 2 girls following behind Xiao Qing. They didn't look old, and they were both timid and good-looking. One of them was taller and looked dull, while the other was younger and looked a little panicked. The person in charge of recording was a man in his 30s. His ability was very special. He could detect the fluctuations of a special ability and analyze its strength and type. So he was arranged to record the special abilities. A newcomer? The man looked up and saw Xiao Qing. His eyes softened a lot. After all, it was rare to see a young, beautiful, and female superpowered person. As a man, he was very tolerant of young, beautiful, and most importantly, single female superpowered people like Xiao Qing. "My teammates awakened their superpowers during the battle, so I came to record it. And my 2 cousins." Xiao Qing asked Yan Hongqing to come forward first. The man was surprised and said, "Release your superpowers first." Yan Hongqing raised his hand and a small bolt of lightning flashed in his palm. "Lightning ability. Not bad. It's at level 1. The man quickly recorded Yan Hongqing's basic information, then gave Yan Hongqing a badge that represented a superpowered person. Yan Honqing stood aside. Xiao Qing held Xiao Tong's hand and said, "This is my cousin, Xiao Tong. She's 12 years old. Her superpower is mental. Her name is Tong." Xiao Tong released her superpower when her name was called. She couldn't control her superpower very well, but she could still control it freely. Level 1 Mental. It's very rare. It's even rarer than the lightning ability. The man's eyes were full of surprise. He recorded Xiao Tong's information again. The last one to step forward was Dai. He was wearing a knee-length skirt, and his face was very delicate with makeup. He held Xiao Qing's hand tightly and looked very scared. Xiao Qing had to explain, "This is my cousin, Xiao Yang. He's not in good spirits because he had been, alas, that kind of bad thing. Then he had some mental problems. He always thinks that he's a girl, so he doesn't dare to interact with strangers." The man looked at Dai with sympathy, and then he suddenly understood. Xiao Qing continued, "He's a strength-type superpowered person. He just awakened his superpower." Xiao Qing nodded and signaled Dai to show it to the man. Dai reached out his finger and poked a hole in the marble table. Yes, he poked a hole. The man was dumbfounded. He had seen many strength-type superpowered people, but it was the first time he saw someone like Dai, who could poke a hole in the marble table with pure physical strength. He moved too fast. I didn't catch the fluctuation of his superpower at all. He's a level 1 superpowered person. Can you release it again? Xiao Qing lowered her voice and asked gently. Dai shyly hid behind Xiao Qing. Xiao Qing said embarrassedly, "He's too shy. You see, it's the same." The man waved his hand and quickly recorded Dai's information. On the one hand, he felt that an ordinary person could poke a hole in the marble table with his finger. On the other hand, beautiful girls always needed special treatment. He should give Xiao Qing some special treatment. Maybe. Xiao Qing thought he was a good person and wanted to marry him or something. "Thank you very much. I'll treat you to a meal when I'm free." Xiao Qing smiled and left with a group of people. As soon as they left the testing area, Xiao Qing breathed a sigh of relief. She finally got through. As long as Dai was successfully registered as a superpowered person in the base, he would be able to enter and leave freely without worrying about being discovered. Xiao Qing was in a much better mood than she had expected. Pan, you guys wait here for the wind. After the car passes the inspection, we can drive it back. Honqing and I will go back to cook first. Let's eat dinner together. Chapter 52. Dummy Dai put on makeup and changed into a girl's clothes. She really looked like a cute little girl, and she was very good-looking. Those passers-by couldn't help but look at Xiao Qing, Xiao Tong, and Dai. However, they didn't dare to do that, especially when they saw the badges on Xiao Qing's chests. Hanging in Xiao Qing's arms, Baozi looked around secretly. Finally, he whispered pitifully in Xiao Qing's ear, "Mama, are they going to eat us?" "Why do you say that?" Xiao Qing glanced around, and all the obscene or overt lustful gazes disappeared. Most of the people here were superpowered people. Few ordinary people dared to look at a superpowered person with such a gaze. But even superpowered people couldn't help lowering their heads when they met Xiao Qing's cold eyes with hidden killing intent. "Because the way they look at us is very scary." Little Bun's eyes widened, full of doubt. Xiao Qing touched Baozi's head. "Baby, you're wrong. There is no such thing." Baozi looked around again. Indeed, those obscene eyes were gone. Xiao Qing held Baozi and went back to her home with Dai, Xiao Tong, and Yan Honqing. The house next to Xiao Qing's was indeed empty. When they started to cook, Yan Honqing went through the formalities and moved into the house next to Xiao Qing's. And they were ready to officially establish their superpowered team. There were many search teams in the base, but only a team with more than 5 superpowered people could be called an official superpowered team. The others could only be called a search team. Xiao Qing's team now had more than 5 superpowered people. It was reasonable for them to establish a superpowered team. After all, A superpowered team was much better than an ordinary search team, and they needed to hand in less materials. After dinner, Xiao Qing was ready to take Yan Hanqing and others to register the superpowered team. The dinner was very rich, celebrating their safe return. Although the trip was dangerous, they didn't have any casualties. Yan Hanqing awakened his superpower, and Xiao Tong joined them. It could be said that it was double happiness. After dinner, they went to register the superpowered team together. The registration place was the place where tasks were handed in. They bypassed the front desk and entered the studio. There was a baby-faced but big-breasted girl who was in charge of registration. She lazily raised her head and glanced at Xiao Qing and the others. When she saw that they were all ability users, she perked up. "Are you here to accept a mission?" "No, we're going to set up a superpowered team." Xiao Qing glanced at the girl's breasts and instantly looked away. The girl opened the registration book and asked, "Then what's the name of your superpowered team?" Xiao, bad at naming, Qing was a bit confused at that time. She was a person who could name people, no, zombies, this kind of name trash. What kind of good name could she come up with? Xiao Qing turned to look at her teammates expressionlessly. Yan Hanqing silently lowered his head, Gu Chuan also turned his head, Gu Panpan looked blank, and Dai didn't even need to look at them. The whole team was bad at naming. Was it true that birds of a feather flocked together? Xiao Qing couldn't help but feel a little desperate. She glanced at the big-breasted girl who had been waiting for a long time with a pen in her hand. She thought for a moment and said, "Can we call it the superpowered team?" The big-breasted girl was speechless. If being bad at naming was considered a disability, Xiao Qing was definitely at level 6. Then Sonorous Rose? Xiao Qing couldn't help but think of a certain TV series and shamelessly decided to use this name. However, the big-breasted girl said seriously, "I'm sorry, this name is already used by someone." Then, Together Under the Wind and Rain? "I'm sorry, this name is already used by someone. God Slayer." "I'm sorry, this name is already used by someone." After thinking of more than 10 names, Xiao Qing felt a little exhausted and a little irritable. Why was thinking of a name more tiring than killing a bunch of zombies? What about Baby Meng? Don't tell me that this name is already used by someone. No, congratulations on the success of your superpowered team. The big-breasted girl smiled, but she was complaining in her heart. Who would call themselves Baby Meng's superpowered team? It sounded cowardly, okay? It would be weird if someone used this name. No objections? Xiao Qing turned around and saw a bunch of hairy heads nodding like chickens pecking at rice. Gu Panpan said very flatteringly, "I think this name is pretty good, it sounds very cute." "Then who is the captain?" The big-breasted girl resisted the urge to complain and asked. Gu Panpan immediately said, "Xiao Qing, the captain is Xiao Qing." Gu Panpan's meaning naturally represented her expressionless brother, and Yan Hanqing naturally supported Xiao Qing. As for Dai, there was no need to ask. "I'm the captain, Vice-Captain Gu Chuan." Xiao Qing didn't refuse and nodded. After recording some basic information, the big-breasted girl said, "Your team is officially established. It's now a level 1 superpowered team. You can take missions in the hall outside, and you'll get points for completing them. With more points, you can be promoted to a high-level superpowered team, and you'll get better benefits." "Thank you." Xiao Qing breathed a sigh of relief. Forcing her to give a name was simply asking for her life. After completing this, they could go out and take missions. Many missions were only open to official superpowered teams. Xiao Qing went outside and looked through the mission list. She saw many missions that required the purchase of high-level zombie crystals. It seemed that the existence and function of zombie crystals were indeed known to the whole world. After directly ignoring the missions that required the purchase of zombie crystal nuclei, Xiao Qing's eyes skipped over a bunch of simple missions that didn't have any good rewards. Her eyes fell on a very obvious one. Level 2 or below, no missions that didn't have at least 3 level 2 superpowered members in the team. In the mission hall, apart from some of the missions issued by the base, some of them were issued by people in the base. For example, This mission was issued by the base at first glance. According to the mission, a lot of confidential information was stored in the municipal building in the city center. Some of it was about the purification of water resources, which was originally intended to be submitted to the capital. After the apocalypse, most of the water resources exposed to the Earth's surface were heavily polluted, and some of them were contaminated by the zombie virus. Even if the water was boiled, no one dared to drink it. If they could get that information and let the researchers study it, they might be able to find a way to purify water resources. For others, this mission was extremely difficult, but for Xiao Qing, it couldn't be any easier. Don't forget, ordinary zombies wouldn't attack her. She could enter and exit the zombie-den city as if she was entering a no-man's land. Chapter 53. The eyes of Gu Pan Pan and the others, who knew the inside story, also lit up, because the reward for this task was too good. There were villas, food, and zombie crystal nuclei. Even their team of paranormals could rise by one level immediately. They would be idiots if they didn't accept it. Xiao Qing flipped through the mission list and accepted 3 missions that required them to go to the city. Of course, the most important one was still the mission of searching for information. The girl in charge of recording looked sweet. She said worriedly, "Are you sure you want to accept this mission? Although it's recommended that a team above level 2 try this mission, even a level 3 team wouldn't dare to accept it alone." Xiao Qing nodded. "Yes. Okay then." Seeing that she couldn't persuade them, the girl had no choice but to record it down. After all, she couldn't stop them from going to their deaths, right? Meng Bao's team, right? The girl who said this name suddenly felt an indescribable sense of shame. She felt that she was going to be embarrassed. However, Xiao Qing said with a serious face, "Yes." The girl hurriedly recorded it down, then said to Xiao Qing, "This is a joint mission. A team has already accepted this mission. Please gather at the square tomorrow afternoon." "Okay." Xiao Qing frowned. It was quite unfavorable for them to work with others. After all, there were 3 abnormal people in their team, especially Dai, who was particularly easy to be exposed. If she was exposed, there would only be 2 endings. Either she would kill all the other team members and silence them, or they would have to escape from this base. Once they were forced to escape, they might not be able to enter large or medium-sized bases in the future. After all, zombies that could sneak into a base would definitely alert the base and send out something like a wanted poster to alert other bases. Then, in the future, other than those small and messy bases that couldn't be any smaller, they really had nowhere else to go. Therefore, Xiao Qing made up her mind. She couldn't let Dai participate in this task, but she was still worried about leaving Dai at home. After all, the base was huge, and there were all kinds of people. It was possible that some of them had their eyes on Dai's beauty, and wanted to take advantage of her absence to make a move. If something happened and Dai's identity was exposed, she probably wouldn't even have a chance to escape in this huge base. Xiao Qing was worried. But in the end, she thought that there must be a way when the car reaches the mountain. If there was no other way, she could take Dummy with her and not let him fight along the way. The whole family went back to pack up and then waited for tomorrow to go on a mission together. According to the girl in the mission hall, the team that had accepted the mission was one of the only 3 level 3 teams in the base. In order for a team of ability users to level up, they had to meet 2 conditions. First, they had to have enough points. Second, there had to be at least 1 ability user in the team who had reached the required level. For example, in order to level up a team of ability users to level up, there had to be at least 1 level 3 ability user in the team. Many level 2 teams in the base had enough points to level up, but they lacked a level 3 ability user. Level 3 ability users were really rare. In this huge base, the number of level 3 ability users could be counted on one hand. Take Xiao Qing as an example. She had discovered zombie crystal nuclei and strange energy crystals long ago, but even so, she was still only a level 3 ability user. However, Xiao Qing was confident that even 3 level 3 ability users wouldn't be able to defeat her. Besides, Yan Hanqing was about to level up to level 2. A level 2 lightning ability user wasn't much weaker than a level 3 ability user. In addition, Gu Pan Pan and Gu Chuan were both at the peak of level 2, and Xiao Tong, who had absorbed the spirit zombie crystal and reached level 2. Even without air dye, their fighting strength was absolutely top-notch. Moreover, there was air dye, a zombie who wasn't much weaker than Shao Qing. It was just that he was a little silly. In fact, the little bun also had some fighting strength, just a little bit. In short, the level of their team couldn't be used to estimate their fighting strength. That level 3 ability user team might not be able to defeat Shao Qing's team in a real fight. In this world where strength spoke louder than words, they were very confident. The next afternoon, when it was time, they packed up and went to the meeting place. When they arrived, the team of paranormals called Storm was already waiting there. They had a total of 6 paranormals, and the leader was a young man with a smile on his face. He seemed to be easy to get along with, but if you looked closely, you would find that his eyes were indifferent. There was another person who attracted Shao Qing's attention. That was a young woman standing beside the man. She was about 30 years old and dressed very provocatively. She had wavy curls and flaming red lips. She had a curvy figure and looked very sexy. Shao Qing didn't even take a second look at the others. When Shao Qing led Yan Hanqing and the others over, the man walked over with a smile and reached out his hand to Gu Chuan. "It's an honor to cooperate with you. I'm Lin Xiaofeng, and this is our vice captain, Cheng Zhao." The beautiful woman immediately walked over and winked at Gu Chuan. Gu Chuan acted as if he didn't see it. After a short silence, he said concisely, "Gu Chuan, our captain, Shao Qing." Lin Xiaofeng immediately felt a little embarrassed. He said bluntly, "I'm sorry. After all, there are too few female captains. Miss Xiao, you're really a woman." Shao Qing smiled and said, "Captain? They're just doing me a favor. Captain Lin, you're joking." They complimented each other again. During this time, Cheng Zhao's eyes seemed to be glued to Gu Chuan and Yan Hanqing. Especially when she looked at Yan Hanqing, she was so hot. After a short negotiation, Shao Qing and Lin Xiaofeng reached a consensus. Shao Qing didn't think that they could cooperate well with the Gale Squad. It was enough that they didn't drag each other down. Lin Xiaofeng probably thought so too. After all, their team looked relatively weak, especially Air Dai and Xiao Tong, who looked like 2 minors. Xiao Tong was holding Baozi in her arms, which made her look more like a little nanny. After reaching a consensus, the 2 teams set off. Seeing that Xiao Tong was about to get in the car with Baozi, Lin Xiaofeng couldn't help but ask, "Captain Xiao, did you forget to send the child back first?" Shao Qing glanced at Baozi and said frankly, "I always take my son with me when I go on a mission. Otherwise, I'll be worried. My son is very obedient. He won't drag us down." Immediately, some people snickered and whispered to each other. The specific meaning was that anyone could form a squad with superpowers. How could she take a child to complete a mission? She must be crazy. Lin Xiaofeng didn't think so. Those who dared to take a child on a mission were either idiots or had the confidence and strength to ensure that their child wouldn't get hurt. Shao Qing didn't look like an idiot. The only thing that looked like an idiot was the name of their team. Chapter 54. The 2 paranormal squads packed up and left the base. Off-road vehicles were especially popular after the apocalypse due to their performance and other reasons. However, ordinary people couldn't afford them because they consumed a lot of fuel. Every time they went out, they had to prepare several barrels of fuel in the car. Otherwise, they would have to leave the car halfway. Fuel was very expensive in the base, and it was very dangerous to find it in the city. Therefore, over time, off-road vehicles became the vehicles that only paranormal squads could afford. 2 paranormal squads and 4 off-road vehicles drove out one after the other. It was quite a spectacular scene. Many people who were waiting in line at the entrance of the base saw it. In fact, this scene was quite pretentious. However, some curious people asked the name of Shao Qing's paranormal squad. After that, their expressions became very strange. Xiao Qing's team naturally didn't know that there was a long distance between the base and the destination city. The two squads discussed for a while and decided not to go too fast. They wanted to avoid arriving at the city at night. In other words, they would rest in the wild for a night. The journey was very smooth. Occasionally, there were a few scattered zombies, but they were easily dealt with. Fierce Wind seemed to have a competitive mentality. Every time a zombie appeared, they would quickly take action and use all kinds of abilities to deal with the zombies. They probably wanted to show Xiao Qing's team how powerful they were. However, Xiao Qing's team didn't attack. They were playing Do Di Zhu in the back seat of the car. The main members were Gu Pan Pan, Gu Chuan, and Yan Hanqing. The rest of them were sleeping soundly. They didn't feel provoked at all. Of course, their indifference had been regarded as weakness by Fierce Wind's members. Then, the weak team of 7 wandered all the way until the afternoon. When the sun went down, they had to set up camp. After all, the two squads weren't familiar with each other, so they set up their tents separately. While the Fierce Wind Paranormal Squad was setting up their tents, Xiao Qing's team suddenly came out with a pile of bamboo poles and surrounded the 3 tents like a fence. Immediately, some people laughed secretly. What could a few bamboo poles stop? Stop the rabbit? Then, they saw Xiao Qing walk out and touch one of the bamboo poles. Tender green vines started from Xiao Qing's palm, and with a swoosh, 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 swoosh. What can a few vines block? A member of the storm team mumbled as he reached out his hand. It looked like he wanted to touch the sprout. Just as he touched the vine, it coiled around his wrist like a snake looking for food and continued to extend up his arm. He let out a blood-curdling scream, and his entire body went limp as if he had lost all his bones. Only his arm was hanging by the vines, and it looked particularly strange. Xiao Qing gently touched the vines, and the vines obediently let go of the man. Only then did they see that the man's arm had turned black. Lin Xiaofeng's expression changed as well. Captain Xiao, it's my team member's fault for being reckless. Please show mercy and give him the antidote. Don't worry. The poison hasn't been injected into his body. It's just the poison on the surface of the vines that has infected his arm. He'll be fine after washing it, but he might be paralyzed for a night. Xiao Qing had long been prepared for this kind of situation, so the vines served as a warning. If the intruder was a living creature, a little bit of poison would be enough to paralyze it. If it was a zombie, it would also wake her up. This was also the reason why she didn't stop that person when he reached out his hand towards the vines. Although she thought that she had a good temper, it didn't mean that she would let others bully her. Those people's whispers weren't soft, and she heard them clearly. Xiao Qing was not a saint, and it was reasonable for her to teach them a lesson. After all, people should be responsible for their own words. The people of Fierce Wind dragged the poisoned man back, and the water paranormals condensed a mass of water to clean the poison on his arm. Several people looked at Xiao Qing with unfriendly eyes. Xiao Qing didn't care. She called Gu Pan Pan and the others to continue cleaning up the camp. Gu Chuan and Gu Pan Pan found some firewood and prepared to start a fire to cook. Of course, Yan Hanqing was in charge of cooking. On the other side, the members of Fierce Wind's Paranormals washed the poisoned man's arm several times. During the first wash, a lot of broken skin tissue flowed down along with the black poison. During the second wash, the color of the water became much clearer. After 5 washes, his arm returned to its normal color. Those people looked at Xiao Qing's team even more unfriendly, especially those who were close to the poisoned man. It seemed that they all wanted to come over and cause trouble. Xiao Qing and the others didn't care about their reactions at all. They set up the pots and bowls, and prepared to cook. To put it bluntly, he was the one who touched the poisoned man's arm. How could he blame them for not stopping him in time? How could there be such a saying in the world? However, as the only 3 level 3 paranormals in the base, Fierce Wind's Paranormals had been completely spoiled. They were selfish and arrogant, and they might kill themselves one day. Yan Hanqing's cooking skills were particularly good. While he was cooking, the aroma of the food would spread far and wide. However, Gale did not have someone like Yen Hanqing who had the ability and cooking skills, so they only ate dry rations. Someone said sourly, "Don't worry about attracting zombies. A newbie will always be a newbie." Courage is bigger than the sky, but no skills. Cheng Jiao rolled her eyes at him and said, "Stop talking. You talk too much." Lin Xiaofeng's judgment was naturally better than theirs. He said seriously, "Don't underestimate them. Otherwise, you'll be the ones who suffer. What you did today was wrong. Someone was unhappy, they have to take their son with them when they go out. Maybe they're spoiled by someone. Boss, you think too highly of them. Look, they even take a cook with them when they go out on a mission. Such a team of paranormals, how strong can they be?" "That's right. They're just a newbie team, but they have such a bad temper. Those guys in the team all have poker faces, as if they're so powerful. Why can't I see how powerful they are?" Another team member said with disdain. Lin Xiaofeng couldn't help but frown. He was a senior executive before the apocalypse, and he thought that he had the best judgment. However, he couldn't see through Xiao Qing. He couldn't even figure out her temperament. However, Lin Xiaofeng was very clear about one thing. Xiao Qing was definitely a capable person. He could tell from her temperament. Chapter 55. They had to eat lunch every day. Finally, they found a safe place to rest. Xiao Qing got off the car with her people. When they walked inside, a tall man with a crew cut kicked the iron gate. Xiao Qing and the others were startled. Especially the unprepared little bun, who went straight into Xiao Qing's arms. Xiao Qing stopped. The temperature in her eyes suddenly dropped. Her long nails popped out in an instant, but before she could do anything, they were caught by Yen Hanqing. Yen Hanqing shook his head at Xiao Qing. After all, it was not the time to turn hostile. Although they were confident that they could wipe out the Gale squad, there would be casualties on their side. It was not worth it. Xiao Qing suppressed her anger, but her face was still cold. She stood at the door and did not go in. She said in a faint voice, "Captain Lin, why don't we split up?" Lin Xiaofeng's face was also a little ugly. His team members did not listen to him and ran to Xiao Qing's team to show their strength. It would be strange if he was happy. "Captain Xiao, the danger of splitting up is too high. If two teams stay together, in case of any trouble, we can help each other." Lin Xiaofeng tried to salvage the situation. Xiao Qing smiled. "Help? Captain Lin, you must be joking. I'm not being aggressive. If we stay here, I can't guarantee that I won't do anything to your team members. I think your team members think the same. It's best if we split up. It's good for you, good for me, good for everyone." Cheng Jiao saw that the members of the Gale squad were about to rebel. In order to calm them down, she hurriedly said, "Since Captain Xiao said so, let's split up." Lin Xiaofeng was really embarrassed, but he did not say anything. After a moment of silence, he said, "Anyway, let's talk about it after lunch." Xiao Qing shook her head, turned around, and left with Yen Hanqing and the others. When they left, they heard the Gale squad's unrestrained cheers. "Sister Qing, are you leaving just like that?" Gu Ponpon's eyes widened. She was very indignant. How could such a group of people become a level 3 team? The heavens must be blind. "Why are you staying for dinner instead of leaving?" Xiao Qing glanced at Dai calmly. Dai immediately understood what Xiao Qing meant. After running a little further, he howled. Zombies had their own way of communicating with each other. Dai's shout just now was to gather the nearby zombies. How could he just leave like that? At the very least, he had to give them a small gift, so that they could put in more effort. Now, Gu Panpan could only cover her mouth and laugh. Xiao Qing got in the car and led Gu Panpan and the others all the way to the shortest but also the most dangerous road. On the other side, people were celebrating. Each one was more excited than the other. Cheng Jiao came over and said in a low voice, "There's a lot of resentment down there. It's not good to let them hold it all the time." Don't be angry. Lin Xiaofeng didn't say anything. He just sat there alone, sulking. He was angry about two things. In fact, he had always noticed that his team members were becoming more and more arrogant. However, there were some things that he couldn't say, so he could only remind them indirectly. However, it was useless so far. They wouldn't change until they suffered losses. Second, the Gale Squad's members almost ignored his words about Xiao Qing's incident, which made him very embarrassed. After all, his authority as a team leader was useless. Not to mention that their team had thoroughly offended Xiao Qing's side this time. While the Gale Squad was discussing when Xiao Qing's team would be wiped out by the zombies, Xiao Qing and the others had found a small supermarket to have lunch. After entering the supermarket, they quickly cleared the zombies in the supermarket and were ready to eat. The supermarkets near the city gates had already been almost emptied out. Gu Pan Pan, who refused to believe it, searched one more time. She only found a packet of plums, a packet of ham sausages, and a few umbrellas. They had all been cleaned up to the point that they couldn't be any cleaner. Sister Qing, if we go to the city center, should we find a few big shopping malls and see if there are any supplies that can be moved? Gu Pan Pan could not help but ask. Xiao Qing sat on the ground and looked at the road map. The nearest road was said to be the most dangerous one because they would pass by several shopping malls, a high school, and countless residential areas. While looking at the map, Xiao Qing said, "There are too many zombies in those large shopping malls. Ordinary search teams and paranormal squads don't dare to go in. So I think the larger shopping malls near the city center have well-preserved supplies." So Xiao Qing's implication was that they should go there. After all, it was on the way. When they finished searching the shopping malls and arrived at the city center building, the Gale Squad would probably still be on their way. This time, our income will definitely not be small. Gu Pan Pan vowed. She had already imagined the scene of resources rolling in. Don't take it lightly. Although ordinary zombies don't dare to attack us, there must be a lot of mutant zombies in such a big city. We still have to be careful in case of a sneak attack. Xiao Qing said without raising her head. The biggest advantage of their squad was that Xiao Qing's instructions and orders would be carried out very well, and there would be no scenes of overt compliance. There was a saying, "Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but be afraid of a pig-like teammate." We will remember. Gu Pan Pan nodded very seriously. They had been with Xiao Qing for so long, so they still had this awareness. Xiao Qing nodded and used a pencil to circle some places where she thought there might be high-level mutant zombies. Although she was not afraid, she didn't want to see any loss, or even one of her team members injured. Naturally, the safer the better. The others sat down to eat. Since they knew that Xiao Qing didn't need to eat, they were used to eating while Xiao Qing watched them eat. Roar! The roar of zombies came from afar. Xiao Qing closed the map and raised her head to look at the direction. She couldn't help but smile. They seemed to be members of the Gale Squad. After finishing their meal, they went out and were surrounded by zombies. That pile of zombies was enough to make them suffer. At least, they didn't have the energy to plot against Xiao Qing. Chapter 56. After a leisurely meal, the group set off once again. This time, without the Storm Ability User Squad, Xiao Qing and the others were free to collect the crystal nuclei. The specific pattern was like this. Air Dai restrained his aura and squatted on the roof of the car, in charge of finishing off the zombies and collecting the crystal nuclei. Gu Pan Pan was in charge of driving. Every time there were zombies that didn't have eyes, Xiao Qing would let the vines wrap around the zombies and pull them closer. Then, Gu Chuan and Yan Han Qing would use their abilities to get rid of the zombies that couldn't resist. Maintaining this pattern for the whole afternoon, Air Dai collected a plastic bag of crystal stones. When the sky was a little dark, Xiao Qing and the others found a safe place to stop and rest. A group of people cleared the space and came out. They gathered in a circle and began to divide the loot. Most of the crystal stones were put in Xiao Qing's space, leaving some to be absorbed in case of an emergency. The next day, after walking for the whole morning, Xiao Qing and the others arrived at the first zombie-dense place. It was a school. When passing by the gate, they could see zombies in guard uniforms wandering around the school. Roughly estimating, there were at least 1,000 zombies in the school. Don't forget, this was a key high school before the apocalypse. There were more than 2,000 students, plus the colonel's staff, nearly 3,000 people. Excluding those who escaped alive, those who were completely eaten, and some zombies who left the school, there were at least 1,000 or 2,000 people left. Xiao Qing looked at the school with envy. How many sparkling crystal stones were there? At present, Yan Hanqing had just become a level 2 paranormal, and the others were in the middle of level 2 and level 3. They needed a lot of energy to fill up. Even she was in the stage of accumulating energy. When the energy was full and couldn't be increased, it would be time for a breakthrough. Right now, ordinary zombie crystal cores were of little use to Xiao Qing. A pile of zombie crystal cores could only provide a small amount of energy. She needed high-level zombie crystal cores. The school was so big, and there were so many zombies. There must be a lot of level 2 and level 3 zombies. They were all high-grade crystals. Yan Hanqing looked at Xiao Qing's expressionless but bright eyes. He couldn't help but say, "We are not in a hurry. They will definitely arrive at the city hall much later than us. It doesn't matter even if we arrive a little later." Xiao Qing's bright eyes were like 2 small light bulbs. Looking at the wandering zombies in the iron gate, it was like looking at sparkling crystals. "Why don't we go in?" Gu Panpan was also very straightforward. "Alright, maybe we can get more high-level crystals. Just pile them up and I'll be able to reach level 3. Xiao Qing fixed the little bun on her back, found a safe place to park the car, and sneaked in with a group of friends. Before going in, Xiao Qing reminded them again and again, "Once you encounter danger, don't fight. Just retreat. We are here to make a fortune. It's not worth it if we get injured or something." Gu Panpan rubbed her hands and said, "Got it, Sister Qing. Where should we start?" "The dormitory building." Xiao Qing considered and then said. They went to the dormitory building. The male and female dormitories were close to each other, and there were a lot of wandering zombies nearby. Ordinary zombies didn't have intelligence. They were dominated by hunger. Zombies couldn't feel full. If there was enough food, they would keep eating. Even if they burst their stomachs, they wouldn't feel full. The higher-level zombies were much smarter. Although they were still dominated by hunger, the higher-level zombies had some judgment ability. The level 3 zombies knew how to fight and ambush. Xiao Qing wasn't interested in these ordinary zombies, but the higher-level zombies were hidden in the crowd. Even if she looked carefully, she couldn't see any difference. Only when she started to fight, could she tell which one was the higher level. So they started to clean up the area. Yan Hanqing's electric power was very useful. He was now working hard to train his control, trying to use the least amount of power to paralyze the zombies. Then, Gu Panpan would be responsible for killing the zombies when they were paralyzed. This kind of cooperation saved a lot of energy and physical strength. After all, there was a limit to one's power. If it was used up, it would be used up. They had to wait for it to recover before they could use it again. Yan Hanqing was only level 2, so how many power could he have? This was the same principle as a poor person calculating how to spend money. Every coin must be used on the blade. Here. They were in groups of 2, hunting zombies not far away. Once they found a higher-level zombie, they would call their friends over and kill it. At this time, Xiao Tong played a huge role. Although she usually didn't talk and just ate or played with Little Bun, she was actually training her spiritual power all the time, especially her ability to control her spiritual power. Every time they found a higher-level zombie, Xiao Tong was responsible for holding up a spiritual shield and bouncing the surrounding zombies away, leaving only the higher-level zombies. Then, the other friends would focus fire together. It couldn't be better. Chapter 57. Their teamwork was getting better and better. Some were in charge of controlling the zombies, some were in charge of attacking, and Xiao Tong could be said to be an absolute defense for a short period of time. Their close-range and long-range attacks were absolutely perfect. After counting the crystal stones, Xiao Qing was very satisfied. Ignoring the ordinary zombie nuclei, there were dozens of level 2 and above ones. The dormitory building was almost cleaned up, and the majority was in the teaching building. After cleaning up the teaching building, Xiao Qing might have more than 100 high-level zombie nuclei in his hands. Of course, among these 100 nuclei, most of them were level 2 zombie nuclei, but even so, it was definitely a big fortune. With an excited mood, Xiao Qing and the others went all the way to the teaching building. There were obviously a lot more zombies in the teaching building, and the density was at least twice as high as in the dormitory building. Xiao Qing and the others also encountered 2 rare spiritual-type zombies. When they arrived here, it could be seen that zombies were generally physically strong, but spiritual-type zombies were not far from being mentally retarded. Therefore, spiritual-type zombies were simply too rare. Spiritual-type zombies were generally weaker in terms of physical strength. Just like the big-headed baby zombie from last time, it was attached to a big, strong zombie. This was also a kind of cooperation and coexistence. The 2 spiritual-type zombies that Xiao Qing and the others encountered had their own small groups. They were relatively difficult to deal with, but they were still killed by Xiao Qing and the others. The 2 crystal stones naturally fell into Xiao Tong's hands. The feeling of hunting zombies in such a dense place was like stealing vegetables from someone's farm. That feeling could not be described with just one word, especially when there were more and more crystal stones in his pocket. There was a feeling of becoming a winner in life. After cleaning up the first and second floors, Xiao Qing did not prepare to take his companions to the 3rd floor. Everyone's abilities were almost used up. If they went up again, it would be bad if they encountered any danger and some of his companions got hurt. People should not be too greedy. They should know when to stop. However, those who were not content were like snakes trying to swallow an elephant. They would all end up being stuffed to death. They went down the teaching building, but before they reached the flag position, there was a sudden scream accompanied by Xiao Tong's spiritual power shield. The vines were like a group of wandering snakes, quickly extending in all directions. Xiao Qing fixed her eyes and saw a zombie in dirty professional clothes climbing up from the ground. It only had half of its head, and the other half had been cut off diagonally by something unknown. A part of its skull had been cut off, and one could still see its slightly wriggling brain. However, this wriggling wasn't because its brain was still alive. Instead, it was because there were maggots crawling around inside, making it look like the brain was wriggling. The zombie's rotten face was covered with a pair of broken glasses. It was hard to tell how the glasses had survived until now. It seemed like this zombie was a teacher when she was alive, but now she was just a zombie. What level is it? Gu Pan couldn't help asking. Xiao Qing frowned and controlled the vines to swing at the zombie like a whip. The female zombie grabbed the vine whip and pulled it crazily, breaking the vines. After testing, Xiao Qing's face was a little pale. It's at a higher level than me. Now we are all exhausted and don't have much power left. It's not suitable for us to fight with it. Let's go. Xiao Tong immediately held up the shield, and the group quickly withdrew. The female zombie was faster. Like a cannonball, it hit the shield. Although it was bounced back, Xiao Tong snorted and fell into Xiao Qing's arms. The level gap between Xiao Tong and this zombie was too big. She couldn't stop it at all. I'll cover you. You take Xiao Tong out first. Xiao Qing said calmly. Under her command, the vines danced wildly as if they were alive, preventing the female zombie from approaching. No, you want to stop it alone? Don't you want to live? Gu Pan widened his eyes and said angrily, We'll go together. Gu Chuan, take her away. Qing, I'll cover you. Yan Hanqing tried. His ability didn't do much damage to the female zombie, but it was still possible to make her stiff for a moment. It shouldn't be a problem for him and Xiao Qing to stop the female zombie for a while. Why are you fighting? Gu Chuan was very calm. Dai must stay. There are zombies outside. If we go out, we will be attacked. It's better to stay and fight. Let Dai take Xiao Tong to the car first. But would Dai leave? He wouldn't leave Xiao Qing behind. Everyone knew this clearly. Xiao Qing had made them so angry that they were about to die. Why was it that each of them was more disobedient than the other? Stay here and drag. Before Xiao Qing could finish her words, the female zombie had already broken through the defensive line formed by the vines and rushed over at lightning speed. Chapter 58. The strange thing was that the zombie didn't pounce on Xiao Qing or Yan Hanqing first. Instead, it pounced on Gu Panpan, who was standing aside. Gu Panpan was still using her superpower. Seeing this, she was startled and subconsciously punched out. However, it was Gu Panpan who was sent flying. When she activated her special ability, her body's toughness was very high, but she was still sent flying and broke the pillar at the entrance of the teaching building. Xiao Qing was really frightened. Her vines wrapped the female zombie into a cocoon in an instant. Gu Chuan ran over to check on Gu Panpan. Fortunately, Gu Panpan was a tough woman. She coughed up some blood and climbed out of the ruins. She wiped the corners of her mouth and said, "Damn it, it almost flattened my chest." Gu Chuan, who was worried about her and ran over, was speechless. High speed, high defense, and high strength. Xiao Qing felt that the big cocoon made of vines was constantly being hit. She quickly calculated the fighting power of the female zombie and said, "No, if we were in our heyday, we might be able to fight it. But now, we can't beat it. It's not easy to retreat." Yan Hanqing looked at it worriedly. Then, he saw that the green cocoon suddenly exploded. These vines were formed by Xiao Qing's superpower. Once they were destroyed, Xiao Qing would also be implicated. She felt a tightness in her chest and a taste of blood rose to her throat. However, the female zombie who broke out of the cage turned around and rushed to Gu Panpan. As soon as Gu Panpan climbed out, she screamed, "Oh my God, did I offend her? Why is she coming to me again?" Then, Gu Panpan was sent flying for the second time. This time, she directly broke the glass door of the teaching building and flew into the teaching building. The female zombie didn't even look at Xiao Qing and the others. It seemed that she was determined to kill Gu Panpan and chased after her. Yan Hanqing suddenly had an idea. Just now, Gu Panpan killed the most zombies, right? Xiao Qing thought about it and nodded. Although she and Yan Hanqing had used vines to control most of the zombies, and Yan Hanqing had used lightning to paralyze most of the zombies, the one who had killed the most was Gu Panpan. Air Dai and Gu Chuan couldn't catch up with Gu Panpan, whose eyes were full of zombie nuclei. Xiao Qing instantly understood. "You mean? Well, I think that a level 4 zombie is very likely to retain a certain level of consciousness. It was a teacher when it was alive. Maybe it was a very responsible teacher. It didn't leave the school when it reached level 4. It is very likely." Yan Hanqing frowned and analyzed. Xiao Qing immediately continued, "You mean, it is protecting the students who have become zombies in the school? So it is crazily attacking Gu Panpan, just because Gu Panpan killed a lot of zombies?" Yan Hanqing nodded. Xiao Qing also felt that this answer was very reliable, so she nodded. "I think it is very likely. Let's give it a try." Gu Panpan already wanted to cry. She didn't understand why the female zombie liked her. It was as if she had stolen its man. She didn't want to let go. Just when Gu Panpan tried to get rid of the zombie many times but to no avail, the zombie suddenly roared outside. The female zombie was originally chasing Gu Panpan happily, but it immediately gave up on Gu Panpan, turned around and ran outside. Gu Panpan was dumbfounded. Just a moment ago, it looked like it wanted to die with her. Now it fell in love with someone else? The female zombie directly jumped down from the second-floor window. With an angry roar, it rushed towards Yan Hanqing, who was killing the zombies. Yan Hanqing didn't want to fight. He ran towards the gate while constantly releasing lightning to kill the zombies on the way. Chapter 59. Sure enough, the female zombie was mad. She roared and followed them. At this time, Gu Chuan had already left the battlefield with Xiao Tong and Xiao Bao. Dai mixed in with a group of zombies and quietly approached the female zombie. When Yan Hanqing was infinitely close to the door and the female zombie was infinitely close to Yan Hanqing, a huge flower head suddenly drilled out of the ground. The position of the flower was very clever. The place where it drilled out was right under the female zombie's feet. Without saying anything, it opened its petals and swallowed the female zombie. The corrosive venom in the flower's petals immediately poured on the female zombie as if it didn't cost money. The female zombie was roaring because of the corrosion. Yan Hanqing turned his head and gave it a lightning, paralyzing the struggling female zombie. Xiao Qing didn't stay idle. After she finished with the female zombie, she controlled the man-eating flower to secrete digestive fluid. She also knew that the man-eating flower certainly couldn't digest the female zombie, but before it struggled out, half of its body's bones and flesh were completely destroyed, which was still possible. Feeling that the female zombie inside had begun to struggle violently, and when the man-eating flower couldn't hold on any longer, Xiao Qing controlled the man-eating flower to open its mouth and spit out the female zombie. The female zombie looked even more terrible now. Its body was covered with a strong corrosive liquid, and there was a burning smell accompanied by smoke. The clothes on the surface of its body were almost corroded, revealing the slightly rotten body underneath. At this moment, there were white bones everywhere. When it moved, pieces of flesh would fall down. At this time, the female zombie was in a state of madness. As soon as it was free, it roared and rushed to Xiao Qing. Xiao Qing waved the vine in her hand like a steel whip. The barbs on the vine all stood up, shining with a cold light. She didn't aim at the female zombie, but at the surrounding zombies who were attracted by the sound. She was very clear that if this whip hit the female zombie, it would at most make her lose a few pieces of flesh and break a bone. It wouldn't leave any fatal injuries. But if it hit the ordinary zombies, it would definitely result in several deaths. As Xiao Qing expected, the female zombie gave up on her and turned to the vine whip. It seemed that it was trying to destroy the vine whip of the students who wanted to hurt it. The female zombie was very fast. It successfully caught the vine whip a second before it fell on the zombies. Before it could destroy it, Dai suddenly jumped out from the group of zombies. It didn't care about the corrosive venom on its body, and hugged the female zombie. The female zombie was obviously a little confused. Its limited intelligence didn't let it know what its student wanted to do, but its body reaction was to break free. But it couldn't because the vine whip in its hand, it suddenly softened and wrapped around its body like a rope. At the same time, Dai's sharp nails pierced through the female zombie's eyes and directly into its brain. When it was screaming in pain, Dai had already grabbed its head and crushed it like half of a smashed watermelon. High-level zombies had strong recovery ability. As long as their heads were still there, they wouldn't die. Although low-level zombies didn't have recovery ability, they could still bite people when their bodies were broken into many pieces. But no matter high-level or low-level zombies, once their heads were crushed, they would really die. Xiao Qing couldn't help but sigh in relief, but her heart was unspeakably complicated. A zombie, full of obsession to protect its students, but what about human beings? Chapter 60. Xiao Qing felt that the reason why this zombie could evolve to level 4 at this time was not because of anything else, but because it had an obsession in its heart, and those obsessions were its students. The strong desire to protect was probably the driving force for it to evolve to level 4. Just like Xiao Qing, it was Little Bun who supported her, and now it was Dai and the others. Now Xiao Qing suddenly felt very lucky. Although she and her son had become neither human nor ghost, if that thing didn't happen, that scumbag might do something else in the future. It was very possible that he would work with the mistress to poison her and her son, and then help the mistress get promoted. Unfortunately, it was also fortunate. At least now she had seen through his character, and could still live peacefully with her son, which was a great fortune in the midst of misfortune. Dai was holding the crystal. His cheeks were still stained with dirty blood, and there were corroded wounds on his body, but he happily ran over and handed the crystal to Xiao Qing. His pupils were very dark, but the color was very beautiful. Especially when he looked at Xiao Qing with sparkling eyes, It always made Xiao Qing want to touch his hair. Xiao Qing finally couldn't hold back, and rubbed Air Dai's hair, and then said softly, "Let's go see how Gu Pan is doing. Let's leave this place first. There are too many zombies here. Who knows, maybe another level 4 or 5 zombie will jump out." Yan Hongqing went to see Gu Pan. Gu Pan was indeed a tough man, and when he came out, he was still very lively. After the group of people gathered, they left the school. Now almost everyone was injured. After returning to the car, Xiao Qing put the crystal in front of everyone. The level 4 zombie crystal was as big as a pigeon's egg. It looked like a piece of crystal, especially when the sun shined on it. The light it reflected was particularly gorgeous. It was hard to imagine that this was something taken out from the corpse of a walking corpse. Everyone knows that zombie crystal nuclei don't have any attributes, except for some special ones. In other words, this crystal can be absorbed by all of us here. Now we need to discuss how to distribute it. Xiao Qing said seriously. There was a saying, even blood brothers have to settle accounts clearly. They looked at each other, and Gu Pan said first, "I think we should give it to Sister Qing. First, Sister Qing is the strongest among us. If we give this crystal to her, she will become stronger, and we will be safer when we go out for missions. Even in the base, she will have more say. Second, when we killed that zombie, Sister Qing contributed the most, so she should take it. Last but not least, I like Sister Qing. If I also have a share of this crystal, I am willing to give it to Sister Qing." Gu Chuan said lightly, "I second that." Gu Pan immediately said with a wretched face, "Brother, which part do you second? I like Sister Qing." Gu Chuan turned his head expressionlessly. "What are you talking about? We are discussing something serious." The few of them still managed to see his slightly flushed earlobes and the side of his face. Gu Pan hid to the side and snickered. Yan Hongqing and the others didn't even need to ask about their thoughts. Xiao Qing didn't pretend to be pretentious. She just took out all the crystals she got today and gave everyone a share. She didn't take a single one, only the level 4 one. "You guys are the ones who suffer losses. If we get something suitable for you in the future, I will give you back." "Okay." Gu Pan put away his share. They all knew that if he didn't take it, Xiao Qing wouldn't take the level 4 one either. After dividing the loot, they returned to their respective cars. Those who needed to apply medicine did so, and those who needed to change their clothes changed their clothes. Then they packed up and continued to move forward. In fact, even if they went back to the base now, this trip's harvest was enough. But they still had a mission, so they couldn't give up halfway. But this time, they didn't run to the place where the zombies were densely packed. Instead, they went to their destination. After all, adventuring once was enough. If Xiao Qing was alone, she would definitely go everywhere, but now she had a group of friends. Even if she wanted to take risks, she had to consider her friends. She couldn't gamble with the lives of her friends, so safety was the first priority. The city was too big, and the road was full of zombies, so they walked slowly. When they arrived at the city hall, it was already the afternoon of the next day. Looking at the traces, the Gale squad hadn't arrived yet. Xiao Qing immediately made a decision: "We won't go in tonight. Let's stay outside for a night and see if that group of people is coming. A school is so dangerous. The city hall is definitely not simple." Of course, everyone agreed. They found a safe place where they could see the entrance of the city hall and prepared to eat and sleep. Of course, the night watch was Xiao Qing and Air Dai. Little Baozi couldn't sleep either, so he rolled around in Xiao Qing's arms. Little Baozi ate a lot, such as crystal stones and some nutritious food. He could kill Gu Pan and Gu Chuan in one meal, and he didn't stop eating. Usually, when he walked on the road, he would hold a crystal stone. However, he didn't grow. Little Baozi looked the same as when he came out of Xiao Qing's belly. He didn't grow at all. Except that his little face was a little chubbier. This made Xiao Qing very distressed. Before, she was glad that little Baozi was 3 heads tall when he came out of her belly, which was much easier to take care of than a baby. Now, she was worried that little Bowsy's body was damaged because of the car accident and other reasons. Otherwise, why didn't he grow? However, Xiao Qing was distressed for a while. After all, it was her first time raising a baby, so she didn't have much experience. She thought that maybe the baby was so slow at the beginning. They spent the whole night with Little Bun and Dumbo competing to see who was cuter. The next day, when they got up and had a full meal, they saw the members of the Gale Superpower team coming in late. Moreover, quite a few of them had injuries on their bodies. They looked a little battered. The few friends who didn't like the Gale squad saw this scene and were very happy in an instant. "We are happy to see that you are not doing well." Chapter 61. The Storm Ability User Team was indeed in a very sorry state. Even Lin Xiaofeng's arm was wrapped in gauze. Gu Panpan stuck her head out of the car window and whistled, "We've been waiting for you all night. If you hadn't come, we would have gone in to take a look." The Gale squad members' faces turned ugly. They looked down on Xiao Qing's team. However, not only did Xiao Qing's team not suffer any casualties as they had imagined, but they also arrived at the city hall without any injuries. Looking at Gu Panpan sighing and clicking her tongue, their faces turned green with a tinge of black, and then a tinge of purple. Xiao Qing got out of the car with a smile. "You must be tired after walking all the way. Do you want to take a rest before going in?" Lin Xiaofeng was about to speak, but a member of the Gale squad said, "No need to rest. Why do we need to rest in such a small place?" Lin Xiaofeng's face darkened, and the veins on his forehead throbbed. He said angrily, "You are the leader, and I am the leader. Are you the leader of this squad or am I the leader?" That member didn't say anything and lowered his head. Lin Xiaofeng took a deep breath and said embarrassedly, "We'd better take a rest. But we lost the food we brought on the way." Xiao Qing smiled faintly. "We brought a lot of food. If you don't mind, come and eat with us." The Gale squad lost their food when they were escaping. They were all injured, so they didn't dare to go deep into the large shopping centers to look for food. The small shops on the roadside had been cleaned out when the apocalypse broke out, so they had been hungry for a day. Even those who didn't like Xiao Qing and the others could only shut their mouths at this moment because they couldn't go against food. Xiao Qing turned to Yan Honqing and asked him to cook more food. Gu Panpan couldn't help but pull Xiao Qing and whisper, "They treated us like that, and you still want to give them food? Sister Qing, you can't be a good person. They will never be grateful to us." Xiao Qing smiled. "Do I look like the kind of person who likes to be a good person?" "Then why?" Gu Panpan asked in confusion. "Prisoners on death row can still eat their last meal before they die. Besides, we're going to use them as cannon fodder. If they don't eat their fill and have no strength, how can they be qualified to be cannon fodder?" Bu Qianlong smiled. "All right, don't think too much about it. Go help Honqing cook." Suddenly enlightened, Gu Panpan ran to help Yan Honqing. Yan Honqing still had some rice left, but there were at most 2 bowls left. It was definitely not enough. He heated up some steamed buns and dried meat, and cooked 2 simple dishes. As soon as the food was served, the Gale paranormals began to eat like a hurricane. Only Lin Xiaofeng and Cheng Jiao were left with good manners. Lin Xiaofeng ate very elegantly, but he ate very quickly. Soon he was full. Sitting next to Xiao Qing, he asked curiously, "Do you bring cooking utensils, oil, salt, sauce, and vinegar with you when you go out?" "A few people in my team are all foodies. My son is growing up, so when we go out on a mission, we have to bring cooking utensils, and ingredients," Xiao Qing said calmly. Lin Xiaofeng was a little speechless. He didn't know what to say, but he was quite clear about one thing. Xiao Qing was definitely hiding her strength. Every time a paranormal team went out on a mission, their heads were hanging on their necks. It was not easy to go back alive. Who would care about food and drinks? Only those who were more relaxed and confident dared to bring cooking utensils, and vinegar. What's more, Didn't the fact that they arrived at the entrance of the city hall earlier than them prove their strength? He was afraid that the team members would think that Xiao Qing and the others came here by luck. They would rather die than believe that they were strong. Lin Xiaofeng really didn't want to be enemies with Xiao Qing and the others. Huh? How can you say that? Before one of the Gale Paranormals could finish his words, Cheng Jiao stuffed his mouth with a steamed bun. You can't even shut your mouth with rice. Do you want to use a knife? The other team members were also silent. They were already embarrassed to talk. How could they have the nerve to say that when they were eating other people's food? Lin Xiaofeng was a little embarrassed. In fact, they don't mean any harm. They just don't think before they speak. Xiao Qing smiled. It's okay. People like them are more straightforward. Who would argue with cannon fodder? Bickering with cannon fodder was the same as bickering with dead people. She felt that she was quite generous, so she was ready to forgive them. When the Gale Paranormals were full, Xiao Qing considerately brought some bandages and the like over. Change your bandages. There will be a fierce battle when we enter the city hall later. Lin Xiaofeng thanked her and then distributed the bandages. Cheng Jiao took the bandages and changed them for him. The cloth on Lin Xiaofeng's arm had been stained red, and the outside was still dirty. Cheng Jiao wrapped the cloth around the wound, revealing the blackened wound underneath. The wound was still bleeding with pus. It was obvious that it had been poisoned. The recovery ability of paranormals was much stronger than that of ordinary people. If it weren't for the poison, Lin Xiaofeng's wound would have started to scab. Xiao Qing still had a lot of medicine in her hand, but she didn't want to give it to Lin Xiaofeng, nor did she want to help Li Xiaofeng. She just watched Cheng Jiao wash Lin Xiaofeng's wound with water, then asked, "Did you cut off the rotten flesh around the wound? It's not good for healing." Cheng Jiao shook her head. "It's useless. I cut it off when I was poisoned." At that time, the red flesh was exposed, but it didn't take long for it to become like this. Cheng Jiao washed Lin Xiaofeng's wound with water many times. Then, she took out a dagger and cut off the rotten flesh. Just as she said, the red flesh was exposed, and the blood that flowed out also turned red. Cheng Jiao poured some powder to stop bleeding and bandaged Lin Xiaofeng's wound. After that, Cheng Jiao became more and more worried. Xiao Qing looked at the situation and asked, "Why don't we rest for another day? We'll go to the city hall tomorrow to take a look." Chapter 62. Lin Xiaofeng felt that Xiao Qing had accommodated them enough. She had waited for so long and provided food and bandages. No matter what the reason was, she had given them enough face. If they continued to put on airs and put on airs, this enmity would be set in stone. So Lin Xiaofeng immediately said, "In fact, they are all minor injuries. But for safety reasons, we should rest for a while before going in to investigate." Xiao Qing nodded and said, "We have already set up the tents. You can sleep for a while and rest up. We will go in to investigate together." Lin Xiaofeng was embarrassed and quickly ordered his team members to set up the tents. His team members were dragging their feet. They were probably still thinking about how troublesome it was to set up the tents themselves. Xiao Qing led some people to help them set up the tents. Then, they went to their own places to rest. They were indeed resting. Xiao Qing's side was quite energetic. They were lying down and chatting. Xiao Qing was very calm and said to everyone, especially Xiao Tong, who was relatively weak, at the critical moment, "Don't show any mercy. Just hide behind them. If there is no danger, then it's fine. If there is a problem, I hope we can all get out of this city. As for them, don't save them and don't care." No one thought that Xiao Qing was cold. Wasn't this the end of the world? If it was a team with good character, maybe they would help them. For this kind of thing, they could die wherever they wanted. No one cared. The team members all expressed that they would remember. When it was almost noon, both sides had rested enough. Yan Honqing made a lot of portable food and distributed it. After all, they were in the building at noon, so there was certainly no place to cook. "It's almost time. Let's go in." Lin Xiaofeng glanced at the towering city hall and said, if there was no problem, they should be able to come out before nightfall. If there was an accident, they could find an empty room to stay temporarily and leave someone to keep watch. After the two sides discussed, Xiao Qing's team was the one to lead the way. Originally, Lin Xiaofeng wanted them to lead the way. After all, the pressure of leading the way was relatively high. They owed a lot of favors to Xiao Qing's team, so it was natural for them to lead the way. However, his team members were not willing to do so. They were all saying that they were the ones who led the way the last time. Why should they do the same this time? It was time for Xiao Qing to lead the way. Xiao Qing gave Lin Xiaofeng, who was stuck in the middle, a way out. Your team members are right. After all, you guys were the ones who opened the path last time. This time, it's our turn. Moreover, your team members are all injured. It's better for you guys to bring up the rear and conserve your energy. Lin Xiaofeng was more grateful to Xiao Qing. After all, Xiao Qing had been giving him face along the way. Compared to his team members who didn't even take the captain's words to heart, he had nothing to say. Lin Xiaofeng had made a decision. This time, when he returned to the base, he must change his team members. At least, he had to change some of them who were not blind, so that they would not offend people and make enemies for him everywhere. The formation of Xiao Qing's team was as follows. Xiao Qing and her son were in the middle, Dai was on the left, Xiao Tong was on the right, and Gu Panpan was in charge of leading the way. Gu Chuan and Yan Honqing were in charge of assisting. In order not to let Gale's team discover the problem, Xiao Qing told Dai to keep a low profile. She didn't want to scare the zombies and make them not dare to come out. All the way up, Xiao Qing's team members almost didn't make a move. Only Gu Ponpon's team members in the front moved. Lin Xiaofeng, who was at the back, couldn't help but frown. It was obvious that Gu Panpan was a strength-type ability user. This was especially obvious, but not rare. Gu Chuan's ability was rarer. The ice element was a variant. Among the thousands of water-type ability users, who knew if there was even a palm-sized number of ice-type ability users? If Gu Chuan's superpower was rare, then Yan Honqing's superpower was rare. At present, the number of lightning superpowered people was pitifully small. Yan Honqing might be the third lightning superpowered person to be registered. The third one didn't mean that there were 2 lightning superpowered people in their base. It meant that there were registered lightning superpowered people in all the survivor bases in the country. That was how rare they were. The movements of the 3 people who opened the way were very simple. They didn't make any fancy moves. As soon as the zombies came out, either Gu Chuan would freeze them or Yan Honqing would use lightning. The zombies that couldn't move were easily dealt with by Gu Panpan. It's nothing. A member of Gale's team muttered, "They're all so arrogant. I thought they were very powerful." Lin Xiaofeng was so angry that he didn't want to talk. His team members didn't have eyes, did they? They didn't even have brains. Why didn't they think about it? They were also opening the way, but they were flying in front with all kinds of superpowers. It looked very powerful, but they wasted so many superpowers. Their speed was not as fast as Xiao Qing's team. This team member had to be changed. He must have been blind to have brought such a group of idiots into his team of ability users. Cheng Jiao and Lin Xiaofeng were childhood sweethearts, so Cheng Jiao could tell what Lin Xiaofeng was thinking. She patted Lin Xiaofeng's shoulder and said, "Brother Feng, don't be too angry. We've been on missions together for so long. Don't you know what kind of people they are? They like to take advantage of you, but deep down, they still trust you." Lin Xiaofeng didn't say anything, but he had already made up his mind. Xiao Qing's team was indeed very efficient. It only took them a few minutes to go from the first floor to the second floor. The mission description was very clear that the information was stored in the reference room on the 6th floor. That was to say, they didn't need to go to the top floor. They just needed to go to the reference room on the 6th floor. The City Hall building was quite empty. After all, most of the people inside were staff and leaders. When the army came to rescue, the City Hall building was the first to be rescued. At the beginning of the apocalypse, the City Hall building had been cleaned up by the rescue army. The remaining zombies were the survivors at that time, and the outsiders who came later. The difficulty of this mission was that they had to go deep into the zombie-occupied city. That was why the reward was so high. Shao Qing's team went all the way to the 4th floor. They didn't encounter any big trouble, so many people couldn't help but feel a little relaxed. Especially the Gale Paranormal team, who was responsible for bringing up the rear. They could be said to have walked leisurely all the way up. They didn't even move their hands. No wonder they let their guard down. But the fact told them that if they let their guard down in this kind of situation, they would often lose their lives. Shao Qing's team was about to go to the 5th floor when a scream came from behind. Shao Qing looked back and saw a corpse with half of its neck torn open on the ground. The Gale Paranormal team didn't even see the murderer. Chapter 63. The corpse's neck was torn apart violently, and the broken laryngeal bone could be seen. Blood spurted out and fell to the ground. The body was still warm, but it was already dead. Only the body's limbs were still twitching slightly. Everyone's heart was cold. They didn't even know what the murderer looked like, when he killed the man, and when he left. It was a mockery. The members of the Fierce Wind Squad, who thought highly of themselves, felt like they had been slapped hard in the face. More than that, they were sad, because the dead man was one of their members. For a long time, no one spoke. After a long time, a member of the Fierce Wind Squad stepped forward, picked up the body, and said, "This is our brother. We have to take him home." Shao Qing was calm. The smell of blood will attract more zombies. Even if he died, he wasn't your man. Don't you feel anything? One of the members of the Fierce Wind Squad roared with red eyes. "This is my brother. So you let your other brothers die because of him?" Shao Qing said blandly. "I don't think it's a good choice." "You know nothing." Another member of the Crazy Concubine Squad rushed up and was about to attack. "I want to ask you how you opened the road. Did you do it on purpose? You don't like us, so you let the zombies come here? I can see that you are a woman with a heart as vicious as snakes and scorpions." Before he could do anything, Yan Hanqing had already stepped forward and kicked him away. The man flew out fiercely and fell on top of the dead body. His head and face were stained with blood. Seeing Yan Hanqing attack, the remaining members of the Fierce Wind Squad couldn't hold back anymore. They rushed over. Lin Xiaofeng shouted angrily but didn't stop them. However, these people still had some sense of propriety. Although they attacked, they didn't use their superpowers. Shao Qing handed the little bun to Yan Hanqing and said calmly, "You all step back. I'm enough." Yan Hanqing and the others were absolutely confident in Shao Qing. They all took a step back. Xiao Tong even took out 5 spice peanuts to eat. It only took Shao Qing a minute to deal with the 3 of them. Then, they were lying on the ground, unable to get up. It was not a glorious thing for 3 grown men to be beaten by a woman empty-handed and crying out in pain. Not to mention the onlookers, even they themselves felt embarrassed. In the end, Lin Xiaofeng walked over. "Have you calmed down now?" All 3 of them, including the one who had just crawled up from the corpse, lowered their heads. They understood the reason, but they were hit by Shao Qing in a moment of hot-bloodedness. Lin Xiaofeng hurriedly apologized to Shao Qing. "I'm really sorry for causing you trouble." Shao Qing shook her head. "Quickly get rid of the corpse. We can't fight among ourselves anymore. After all, there is still a killer hiding in the dark." Only then did they wake up. It was indeed not the time to fight among themselves. Several members endured the pain and burned the corpse. They put the ashes in a bag and took it away. When they went on the road again, their vigilance was high. After all, there was already a precedent. No matter how stupid they were, they wouldn't be as relaxed as before. Probably the killer in the dark also knew that they were vigilant. Until they reached the 5th floor, that thing didn't make any more moves. When they reached the 6th floor, they became even more vigilant. "I originally wanted everyone to spread out and search for it," That way it would be faster. But now, there's a monster hiding in the dark. I'm sure it's very fast and very lethal. So, we can't spread out and let it kill us one by one. Lin Xiaofeng thought for a moment and then said, "Why don't we search together? Although it will be slower, at least it will be safer." Shao Qing nodded. "Or we can split into 2 teams. That way, it will be faster. Let's go together. Safety first," Lin Xiaofeng said with some pain. "I don't want to sacrifice any more brothers." Shao Qing nodded. "Then we will start from here and search along the corridor. We will only look for the room on one side. When we reach the end, we will go back and look for the room on the other side." Lin Xiaofeng said, "That's the safest way." "I agree. One more thing. Is there an earth ability user? The moment we open the door, we have to prevent something from jumping out. So, if there is an earth ability user with high defense to open the door, it will be safer." Shao Qing was the first to say. "We don't have one here." "I am." The short guy who was kicked away by Yan Hanqing raised his hand and said, "I am a level 2 earth ability user. I have earth armor and earth shield. I will open the door." "Little Six, you do it." Lin Xiaofeng nodded. "Be careful." Little Six attached the earth armor to his body and condensed an earth shield in his hand. Then, he went to open the first door on the left. Fortunately, after the first door was opened, nothing came out. However, they didn't let their guard down. Little Six was the first to enter the door, followed by Yan Hanqing, who had the thunder ability, and a fire ability user from the wind ability user team. Both of them were assault type. If they were in danger, they could quickly help Little Six. The rest of the team came in one after another. 3 people were left to guard the door, in case they were attacked from the front and back. However, there was nothing in the room. They searched around, but found neither information nor zombies. They opened the second door in the same way. The room was also a mess. There were messy bloodstains on the floor, but there was no information or zombies. When they reached the end of the corridor, Little Six tried to open the door, but it was locked. They had encountered 2 rooms with locked doors before, but it wasn't a problem. Little Six moved aside slightly, then covered Gu Pan Pan with an earth shield. Gu Pan Pan took a deep breath and instantly turned into a King Kong Barbie. She kicked the door open. Yes, it was broken. Just as the door shattered, a black shadow pounced out. At this moment, Gu Pan Pan's reaction time was clear. She was very calm and unhurried. She firmly stomped her foot on the ground and then smashed her fist into the thing's head. Chapter 64. The punch was so solid that the zombie's head burst open, and its brains spilled all over the ground. Of course, that was not the point. The point was that the one who had launched the sneak attack had come out again. This time, it had targeted Gu Chuan. Just as it was about to strike, Shao Qing discovered it first. She quickly waved her vines and whipped it to the ground. Its body hit the ground with a loud noise. Everyone looked at the zombie. It quickly got up and tried to escape, but its lower body was bound by Shao Qing's vines. It was a young zombie. It should be a male, but its face was rotten beyond recognition. Its hands were different from those of ordinary zombies. Its nails were extraordinarily long, as if its hands were full of sharp knives. It was probably the weapon that had torn open the throat of the Gale Paranormal. Kill it. Avenge our brother. The Fire Paranormal from the Gale Paranormal attacked without saying a word. Fortunately, Lin Xiaofeng was more rational. Don't be too impulsive. We have more people. We won't let it run away. Yes, don't use the fire ability. Burn the vines and it will run away. Shao Qing tightened the vines and said coldly, "Those who don't use the wood ability, go first. Don't let it run away." Lin Xiaofeng nodded. This was also the first time Shao Qing had seen Lin Xiaofeng's special ability. His special ability was also relatively rare. It allowed him to control metal. In his hands, Metal could freely change into various shapes to be used in battle. As for Cheng Jiao, she was also a very special paranormal. Her hair could quickly grow and become extraordinarily tough, just like Shao Qing's vines, which could be used to bind others. The cooperation between Cheng Jiao and Lin Xiaofeng was like that between Shao Qing and Gu Panpan. One was controlling the other, and the other was attacking. They had a tacit understanding. The zombie was very fast, but it couldn't withstand the attacks of 7 or 8 people at the same time. It didn't even have time to react before it was buried in the colorful superpowers. When the light dissipated, only bones were left. Lin Xiaofeng's people breathed a sigh of relief, feeling the pleasure of revenge. The fire-powered paranormal, who hadn't been able to make a move, was so angry that he ran up to the zombie and turned it into ashes. After the group of people finished cleaning up this strange house, they went into the room to search. This room was filled with information, and it was very likely that this was the information room they were looking for. However, there was too much information in this room, and a lot of it was damaged by the zombie hiding in the room. Maybe this zombie was the administrator of the information room. When the apocalypse came, he became a zombie or was bitten, so he specially locked the door, not wanting to turn into a zombie and bite others. However, the documents in the house were all destroyed by the zombies. Shao Qing and the others searched for a long time, and finally found an incomplete document about water purification. They were all stunned. What should they do with only half of the document? Moreover, it was badly damaged, with a lot of blood and torn fragments. Ordinary people couldn't understand what it was. After a moment of silence, Cheng Jiao suddenly said, "My brother is a civil servant. He once told me that there are at least 3 copies of important information. One is stored in the database on the computer, one is stored in a USB drive, and one is printed in paper. Should we go up and have a look?" Lin Xiaofeng asked. "Even if we go up and find the computer and the USB flash drive, there is no electricity. How can we find the information? How can we determine which USB flash drive the information is in?" Shao Qing asked calmly. "There is a research room under the government building. Even if the power outside is cut off, the research room won't be cut off. We still have a chance." Cheng Jiao gritted her teeth and said, "Since we are already here, we should at least do the task perfectly. Otherwise, it will be a waste of time." Shao Qing was silent for a while, and then asked for Yan Hanqing's opinion, "Should we go to the basement?" "Let's go." Gu Panpan and Gu Chuan exchanged their opinions, and then said, "If we can really find the information and the method to purify the water, it will be good for us." Shao Qing then looked at Lin Xiaofeng. Lin Xiaofeng was silent for a while, and then said, "Sorry, I want to take my brothers out first." He knew that it was unkind of him to do this, but it was true. If they lost any more members, the Gale squad would suffer a great loss. Although he kept saying that he would replace all the members when he returned, in fact, he hoped more than anyone that none of his members would stay here forever. They could go back and submit the information, and he didn't want to take any more risks. Cheng Jiao's eyes widened. She wanted to say something, but after a while, she still didn't say anything. Finally, she lowered her head. "Then you guys go out and wait. I will take my team to go down and have a look. It would be best if there is electricity, but if not, we will just leave." Shao Qing didn't complain. She just said lightly. She didn't want to be a saint. She just wanted the environment to become better and better. At least, she wanted her son to have a better life in the future. After all, she wasn't the only one who benefited from this. Chapter 65. Feeling ashamed, Lin Xiaofeng left with his team members. The 2 teams separated on the first floor. Shao Qing led her team members into the elevator. She never thought of herself as a good person. She even thought that she was cold-blooded and heartless, but she had her own bottom line. She had her own judgment on what should be done, what should not be done, what should not be done, what should not be done, and what should be done. Due to the lack of electricity, the elevator couldn't operate normally. There were no stairs to the basement, so they could only take the elevator. Gu Pan Pan violently destroyed the elevator, and the elevator inside screamed as it fell. Finally, it hit the ground with a loud bang. Shao Qing wrapped the vines around the door handle not far away. In order to make sure that the vines would not break when they went down, Shao Qing used several vines to make a very strong vine rope. To ensure safety, Shao Qing was the first one to go down. She grabbed the vines and slowly climbed down the dark passage. At last, she landed on the wreckage of the elevator. The basement was particularly dark and gloomy. She frowned and took out some clothes from her space. Then, she found an iron rod and wrapped the clothes around one end of the iron rod to make a simple torch. There was no one with fire power in their team. In order to make a fire, everyone would bring a lighter with them when they went out. Shao Qing was no exception. She lit the torch with the lighter. When the light illuminated the area around her, she was startled. Next to her was a zombie that was beyond recognition. It was smashed under the wreckage of the elevator. Its body was broken at the waist. Its upper body was crawling on the ground, dragging long guts out. Anyone who saw this scene would be scared out of their wits. She mercifully freed the poor zombie, and then looked around. She didn't find any other zombies, so she pulled the vines, and the people above came down one after another. When everyone came down, Shao Qing had already found the light switch. She pressed the switch, and a row of lights lit up one after another. The originally dark space instantly became as bright as day. It was so bright that it stung people's eyes. The entire basement wasn't big. There were only 2 rows of 8 rooms and an empty space. However, it was very messy. It was hard to tell what it used to be. It's better to be cautious. Let's start from the first room. Shao Qing didn't dare to let her companions take the risk, so she used vines to open the door. The vines wriggled up the doorknob and twisted it open. Then the vines pushed the door open. The room was dark, and only the dusty floor could be seen from the part where the light shone in. The rest of the room was gloomy. Shao Qing controlled the vines and groped around the wall. She found the switch and turned on the light. They didn't know whether it was luck or not. As soon as the light was turned on, they saw a lot of computers in the room. Who knows how to use computers? Shao Qing went out first. She didn't find any danger, so she turned back and asked, "Me?" Gu Chuan came over and turned on the computer. "I learned programming in college." Several other people also helped to turn on the rest of the computers. The computers here had passwords. Gu Chuan tried and began to crack them. Shao Qing didn't know how to do this, so she said, "You guys stay here. I'll go out and have a look." Shao Qing didn't go far. She went out of the door and looked around. There were definitely zombies here. After all, there was no elevator. The mutated zombies couldn't leave. They must be hiding now. I can feel. Shao Qing was looking around. Suddenly, a somewhat childish voice sounded in her mind. She was stunned. She looked back and saw Xiao Tong standing at the door with a nervous expression. "Just now. Sister, it's me." Xiao Tong's fingers were intertwined. She nervously drew circles on the ground with her toes. Her voice was thin and soft. It directly sounded in Shao Qing's mind. "What's the matter?" Shao Qing was very surprised. Xiao Tong's eyes were bright. She was like a child who had just learned to speak. Her pronunciation was very unclear. Before breaking through learning, Shao Qing almost understood. Xiao Tong meant that when she broke through to the second level, she learned to convey her thoughts with her consciousness. This should be the unique ability of psychics. This ability may not be useful for others, but for Xiao Tong who couldn't speak, it was the most useful ability. Shao Qing was also very excited. Since the moment she brought Xiao Tong home, she treated her as a family member. Otherwise, she wouldn't use Xiao as her surname. Now, Xiao Tong could use another way to do what she wanted but couldn't. Shao Qing was also happy for her. "Sister." Xiao Tong looked at Shao Qing nervously and shyly. Her beautiful big eyes were shining. "I like you." Chapter 66. Xiao Qing blushed inexplicably. It felt good to be relied on and loved wholeheartedly. Of course, it had nothing to do with love. Sister, over there. Xiao Tong turned her face to a corner. She was a psychic paranormal, so her perception was different from others. She could sense the abnormal spiritual waves in that corner. Follow behind me. Be careful and guard against this. Xiao Qing touched her head and told Yan Hanqing and the others. Then, she walked to the corner with only Er Dai and Xiao Tong. When they reached the corner, even Xiao Qing was shocked. The ground was littered with corpses. All of them were mutilated corpses. Some of them had already mutated, while others had already turned into zombies. All of them had died in this corner. In the corner, there was a curled-up person, probably a human. Her body was covered with dirty blood, and her breathing was very weak. When Xiao Qing came over, the girl raised her head. The left side of her face was rotten and hideous, while the right side was as smooth as a freshly peeled egg. Her voice was hoarse and terrible. A living person. Who are you? Xiao Qing frowned. She didn't feel any murderous intent from the girl. She paused for a long time, and then said slowly, You are not living person. She is. Then, she closed her mouth and didn't say anything. Xiao Tong suddenly looked at the girl. They didn't say anything, but some slight energy waves rippled in the air. They were probably communicating with their minds. After a long time, the girl reached out and stuck her hand into her own chest. She pulled out a yellowish thing the size of an egg and handed it to Xiao Tong. Her normal eye was suddenly filled with tears. She said softly, The USB flash drive has a password. It's my birthday, 199000613. If you enter the wrong password, the USB flash drive will format itself. Thank you. Xiao Tong looked at Xiao Qing. She didn't say anything. Xiao Qing also understood. She took out a military knife and gave it to Xiao Tong. Xiao Tong personally freed the girl. After the girl stopped breathing completely, Xiao Tong told Xiao Qing the whole story. The girl had a very special disease. Her eyes couldn't see the sun. Even if the cornea was replaced, it would be useless. Her father had been doing all kinds of research, hoping to cure her disease. Although the girl's eyes weren't good, she was a genius. For example, the water purification method was something she had researched. She had sent the information over just in time for the outbreak of the apocalypse. When they were in the basement, because all the researchers were physically weak, when the apocalypse broke out, all of them were infected by the zombie virus. Some became zombies in the early stages, and some were bitten. Due to her high IQ, the girl awakened a psychic ability. However, she was bitten during the awakening process and turned into a half-human, half-zombie. She couldn't die or live even if she wanted to. Before those people became zombies, they begged her to end their lives so that they couldn't go out and hurt others. It was better to die than to become a walking dead who hurt their own kind. Therefore, she was left alone, struggling bitterly. The zombie that was smashed to death by the elevator wreckage was deliberately left behind. Firstly, it was too lonely to be alone. Secondly, it was a warning. If someone tried to take away all the information here, she would be able to find it. After everything was done, the girl sat in the corner. Her psychic ability could make her cells divide constantly, but they were constantly swallowed by the zombie virus. She could only feel her body being swallowed by the zombie virus little by little, and she was losing control of herself little by little. Until Xiao Qing and the others came. Finally, she could be free. She didn't have to struggle in madness and despair every day and night. Death was a kind of relief. Xiao Tong held the yellow thing and handed it to Xiao Qing. It should be something between an energy source and a zombie crystal. Xiao Qing shook his head. She gave it to you. You can take it. I don't need it. When your level is higher, you can protect me. If I meet her father in the future, I must tell him that she is living a good life. Hearing this, Xiao Tong accepted it happily. Then, she sent a message to Xiao Qing with sparkling eyes. Shao Qing hung the special crystal on her neck with a vine twig, so that she could absorb it at any time. I will remember it. If I have a chance to meet this girl's father in the future, I will tell him that I met this girl one day, and she is living a good life. After the girl's body was disposed of, Shao Qing took Dai and Shao Tong back. When he got back, he saw several people working around the computer. What's wrong? I found a document in the computer. I want to backup it with a USB flash drive, but the USB flash drive needs a password, Gu Chuan said with a headache. The password is 199000613. There is a complete document in it. You can check it. If it is, we can go, Shao Qing said in a low voice. Gu Chuan checked it and found a complete document in the USB flash drive. He couldn't help but be surprised. How did you know? Shao Qing told them what had happened just now, and they all sighed. Since they got the document, they didn't need to find anything else. Following the method they used when they came, they let the vines climb up and find a place to fix it. Then, Shao Qing took the lead and climbed up first. Although there was light underground, it was full of the smell of blood, decay, gloominess, and mold. It was very depressing. As soon as they came out, they couldn't help but take a deep breath. Well, the task is done. Now we just need to go back and hand in the task, Shao Qing breathed a sigh of relief. Let's go out and see if the storm squad is still there. They must have run away with the incomplete document. Gu Panpan couldn't help but say, "What level 3 storm squad? They are just a group of shameless hooligans." Shao Qing laughed as she walked out. Panpan, you're actually quite gentle. Look, you only know how to scold people with these few words. I will call them a group of idiots. Gu Panpan was not convinced. When they walked out of the door, they were all stunned. The ground was full of corpses, and they were all familiar corpses. The storm squad. Chapter 67. Shao Lu's body was torn in half, and his internal organs were scattered all over the ground. The two halves of his body were badly mutilated. The chest of the fire ability user was torn open, revealing his broken bones and internal organs. The young man who was kicked away by Yan Hanqing was even more miserable. From his waist down, only his bones were left. Corpses lay on the ground one after another, and the only one alive was Lin Xiaofeng. His left arm was broken, and it hung limply on the ground. He lay on the ground covered in blood and was on the verge of death. When he saw Shao Qing, he shouted hoarsely, "Jiao Jiao! Jiao Jiao has been taken away." What was that? Shao Qing calmly took out some medicine to stop the bleeding on Lin Xiaofeng's body. Lin Xiaofeng grabbed Shao Qing's arm with his right hand that could still move and said anxiously, "It's a mutated zombie. It's very strong and can tear a person in half. There's also a mutated zombie dog with it. Captain Shao, please save Jiao Jiao." Shao Qing was expressionless, and he didn't want to help. He just slowly sprinkled medicine on Lin Xiaofeng. Lin Xiaofeng said anxiously, "As long as you save Jiao Jiao, all the rewards of this mission will be yours. If you die here, the rewards will be ours when we go back," Shao Qing said expressionlessly. "Not only that, as long as you save Jiao Jiao, all my assets will be yours." Lin Xiaofeng's tears fell from the corners of his eyes. Not only his teammates, but he also thought too highly of himself. That was why he fell so heavily. Cheng Jiao was his childhood sweetheart, and also his lover. They had been together since the apocalypse, and they had supported each other. However, they fell in this place. His brothers were all dead, and even Cheng Jiao's fate was unknown. "Why?" Shao Qing asked with confusion. "I thought you would beg me to take you out of this city. After all, she was taken away by a zombie. Even if she didn't die, she would become a zombie." "I love her." Lin Xiaofeng's glasses were nowhere to be seen. He clutched Shao Qing's arm tightly, and his voice was extremely hoarse. "Han Qing, you guys take Captain Lin to the car first. I'll look around and see if I can find Cheng Jiao." Xiao Qing let go of Lin Xiaofeng and prepared to check it out. She didn't think that Cheng Jiao was still alive. After all, not all zombies were like her and Air Dai, who caught a living person and kept them alive. She wanted to search around and let Lin Xiaofeng owe her a favor. If she could find Cheng Jiao's body and bring it back, it would be even better. She didn't let Lin Xiaofeng down. Air Dai followed Xiao Qing without hesitation. He had become Xiao Qing's little tail. Wherever Xiao Qing went, he had to follow. He didn't want to be separated from Xiao Qing for even a moment. Even if Xiao Qing disappeared from his sight for more than a certain amount of time, he would go crazy. Xiao Qing also knew Air Dai's habits, so she took Air Dai and went in the direction that Lin Xiaofeng said. Soon, they found a clue because there were bloody dog paw prints on the ground. Xiao Qing and Air Dai started to search along the bloody dog paw prints. The dog paw prints finally stopped in front of a shop with a smashed glass door. Xiao Qing tentatively walked into the house. Once she reached the door, a zombie dog jumped out, bearing its fangs and dripping saliva mixed with blood. It wasn't very rotten. It stared at Xiao Qing fiercely. Dumbo Air quickly rushed up and fought with the zombie dog. The zombie dog had good strength and agility, but it was not as good as Dumbo Air. Soon, it was beaten by Dumbo Air and lay on the ground, crying. In the end, it was killed by Air Dai. After killing the zombie dog, the two of them walked in. As soon as they entered, they saw a shocking scene. Cheng Jiao, who was dying, was pushed against the wall by a tall zombie. Her shirt was torn and her pants were completely torn. Although they were blocked by the zombie's body and couldn't see what happened, Xiao Qing could guess. Cheng Jiao's arms were broken, so she couldn't struggle at all. She stared at the ceiling blankly, and bright red blood kept flowing out of her lips. Seeing this scene, Xiao Qing felt that her hands were trembling. Cheng Jiao was raped by a zombie, so she couldn't die even if she wanted to. She didn't think that it was risky to agree to Lin Xiaofeng's request to search for Cheng Jiao. There was only one thought in her mind, which was to kill this special zombie. When the zombie heard the sound, it threw Cheng Jiao aside and walked towards Xiao Qing with its swaying thing. It looked at Xiao Qing with a strange desire, which made Xiao Qing feel disgusted. Air Dai couldn't stand it either. He didn't know why he was angry, but he felt that his precious treasure was being violated by someone else. He rushed up quickly, and when he fought with the zombie, his first target was the zombie's lower body. In particular, that important part became the object of his attention. After being stepped on, the zombie went crazy. Before it could do anything to Air Dai, it was entangled by vines. However, this zombie was very strong, and the vines only restrained it for a second before it broke. However, there was an endless stream of vines that climbed up layer by layer. It didn't matter if the vines were broken, but when the old ones fell, new ones would immediately replace them. Before the zombies could fight back, they were beaten by Dumbo until they screamed miserably. In particular, a key part of their body was almost broken by Dumbo's stomp. However, it was a huge burden for Xiao Qing to use her superpower in such a reckless manner. Her face quickly turned pale, but she still gritted her teeth and continued to release vines to bind the zombie. That zombie was really tough. Air Dai tried for a long time, but couldn't leave any big scars on its body, let alone seriously injure it. Xiao Qing gradually calmed down. She was indeed a little impulsive just now. After calming down, Xiao Qing began to observe. She didn't believe that this zombie didn't have any weakness. The zombie's clothes were burned, which meant that fire didn't have any effect on it. Cheng Jiao must have tried to bind this zombie when she was facing the fierce wind squad. Then, she cooperated with Lin Xiaofeng to attack it, but it didn't work. Otherwise, the fierce wind squad wouldn't have been almost wiped out, and Cheng Jiao wouldn't have been kidnapped and humiliated. Xiao Qing observed carefully. No matter what, she had to kill this zombie today, not only for Cheng Jiao. Obviously, Cheng Jiao wasn't the first victim. In a corner not far away, there were several naked female corpses. Although some of them were rotten, some were relatively new. It was obvious that they had been humiliated when they were alive, and there was a big hole in their stomachs. Even if it was for the good of the people, she was going to kill this zombie. Chapter 68. Xiao Qing's long and sharp nails were moving rhythmically. For the first time, she was multitasking. On one hand, she was using vines to bind the zombie. On the other hand, she was rushing forward. Together with Dai, they were fighting the zombie. During the fight, Xiao Qing had been constantly trying to attack the zombie's throat, head, and other vital points. However, she did not receive any ridicule. Until she attacked the zombie's eyes, the zombie dodged for the first time. Xiao Qing's eyes lit up. She and Dai began to attract the zombie's attention. Finally, when the zombie was busy running around, one of its eyes was poked blind. The huge zombie howled on the spot. Xiao Qing didn't even have time to breathe a sigh of relief before she heard a rustling sound coming from the surroundings. When she looked up, she saw 5 or 6 little zombies with umbilical cords around their bodies. They were like half-rotten monkeys crawling over. Their eyes were very big. When they stared at people, they looked very scary. They would only let out a strange cry. Xiao Qing suddenly understood why the female corpses in the corner had a huge hole in their stomachs. These monsters should have crawled out from their bodies. They all crawled out from the stomachs of the corpses. Why were they not as cute as her little bun? So it was better to die. The monkey-like baby zombies rushed over while crying. Then, they were swallowed by the man-eating flower. The man-eating flower lazily stretched its huge leaves. Pia, it slapped a baby zombie that was trying to get close to Xiao Qing to the ground. Another one rushed over and was swallowed by the man-eating flower. It was not worried about indigestion at all. The man-eating flower had a very good appetite. It swallowed a few zombies in one bite. Once they entered the mouth of the man-eating flower, they were paralyzed by the venom secreted by the flower. Then, they were quickly digested. The man-eating flower had not eaten so full for a long time. It was happy and twisted there. When the big zombie saw its last helpers being slapped on the ground like rubber balls and eaten one by one, it tried to run away. However, Xiao Qing's vines kept entangling it. When it was broken, new vines would replace it. The big zombie was about to go crazy. It opened its mouth and spat out a ball of fluffy things. When that thing came out, it drilled into Xiao Qing and Dai's bodies. Although Xiao Qing was prepared, she still could not block it completely. She gritted her teeth and jumped on the zombie's back. At the same time, the vines crazily wrapped around it. Dai also rushed over and hugged the zombie. Xiao Qing held a military knife and fiercely stabbed it into the zombie's eye socket. Stab after stab, black blood mixed with the ruptured eyeball sputtered out, causing the zombie to continuously howl as if it had gone crazy. Xiao Qing had already felt that something was growing and spreading in her body. It was the same feeling as if she had planted a seed in someone else's body. The moment it exploded, the body was full of plants. She knew that she could not waste a minute. She fiercely stabbed into the zombie's eye socket. The tip of the knife pierced through the back of the zombie's head. Again and again, the back of its head was poked into a hornet's nest. The last zombie was dead, but it was still fixed in place by the vines and Dai. Xiao Qing stabbed it until its head was full of holes. Then Xiao Qing kicked its body away. She grabbed Dai and stuck her hand into Dai's abdomen. Dai did not resist at all. It just stared at Xiao Qing with its big eyes and let Xiao Qing search inside its abdomen. Xiao Qing searched for a while and suddenly pulled her hand out. Then, she pulled out a thin mass of dodder. This kind of plant was like a vine. It used a vine-like structure to climb on other plants. Then, it would extend sharp thorns from the parts of the plant that were in contact with the plant. It would pierce the plant's epidermis and absorb nutrients for its own growth. In the end, the plant that it climbed on would gradually die due to lack of nutrients. Then, it would look for other plants to climb on. In short, it was a very disgusting plant. After that mass of dodder was pulled out, more dodder started to grow in Dai's body. Xiao Qing gritted her teeth. She cut a wound on her wrist with a military knife and stabbed it into Dai's abdomen again. As expected, the seeds of the daughter climbed into Xiao Qing's body through the wound. Dai suddenly grabbed Xiao Qing's arm and tried to pull it out. He should have sensed Xiao Qing's thoughts. Xiao Qing grabbed Dai's hand and said, "Don't move. I have a wood power. I have a way to deal with them. Don't pull it. It hurts." Dai froze. He didn't know what to do and didn't dare to move. It was as if he didn't notice that there was a hole in his abdomen. All he could think about was the wound on Xiao Qing's hand. When Dai's body was clear of the daughter, Xiao Qing let out a sigh of relief. She pulled her hand out and pushed Dai. "Go check on Cheng Jiao. I'll see if I can get rid of it." Dai didn't move. He squatted down and looked at Xiao Qing without blinking. He was very stubborn, especially when it came to the issue of leaving Xiao Qing. He was as stubborn as a bull. Even Xiao Qing couldn't persuade him. Xiao Qing had to give up. She endured the pain of her internal organs being pierced by the daughter. She started to communicate with the daughter with her wood power. These daughters had lost their master, so they multiplied and grew without any scruples. Xiao Qing's wood elemental energy was loved by all plants in the world, and the daughters were no exception. At the very beginning, they tentatively came in contact with the wood elemental energy, then began to unscrupulously extend their bodies towards the wood elemental energy. When they had almost wrapped the wood power into a ball, Xiao Qing activated her power again. She wrapped a ball of energy around the daughter and attacked it from the inside. Xiao Qing wanted to get rid of the daughter directly. However, she found that they were very stubborn. They kept growing and multiplying. At this rate, it would take Xiao Qing about a month to get rid of them. In the end, Xiao Qing gave up. She directly tamed the daughter. After all, she hadn't found a third mutant plant after upgrading. Although the daughter didn't have much effect on zombies, it was very useful against humans. 1 or 2 daughter seeds were too small. People wouldn't be able to find them if they didn't know about their existence. It was a must-have for traveling and killing people. After taming the daughter, Xiao Qing's face was terribly pale. She walked to Cheng Jiao. Cheng Jiao had already used her broken right hand to put her left hand back to its original position. The clicking sounds were particularly frightening. "Are you okay?" Xiao Qing asked softly. Cheng Jiao's voice was hoarse. "Lend me a knife." Chapter 69. Xiao Qing didn't say anything and silently carried Cheng Jiao back. When they got back, Cheng Jiao was already asleep. Lin Xiaofeng had been holding on until he saw Xiao Qing carrying Cheng Jiao back. Then he closed his eyes to rest. He was already at his limit and had been holding on. When Lin Xiaofeng woke up, he found that his car was shaking. When he turned his head, he could see Cheng Jiao's pale face and her bandaged stomach. He didn't see any big wounds on her body. He relaxed immediately and the wounds all over his body started to hurt. Xiao Qing was sitting in front of them. Hearing the sound, she turned her head. "Don't worry. Her body is seriously injured and she's mentally exhausted. I gave her some sleeping pills and let her sleep a little longer." "Thank you," Lin Xiaofeng said sincerely. Xiao Qing curled her lips slightly and said with a little evil tone, "You really love her." "She and I were childhood sweethearts. We grew up together." Many people say that 2 childhood sweethearts can't fall in love with each other because they are too familiar with each other. But I'm different from Cheng Jiao. I love her very much, and she loves me very much. After this kind of relationship settled down, it became like family. Lin Xiaofeng laughed self-deprecatingly. "I treat her as my lover, but I also treat her like a sister. I can't protect her. Do you know what happened to her before?" Xiao Qing looked Lin Xiaofeng up and down and said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Lin Xiaofeng's face paled a lot. But soon he became determined. "No matter what happened to her, it's all in the past. I will comfort her and heal her inner wounds." Xiao Qing didn't say anything else. She turned around lazily with her back facing Lin Xiaofeng. Don't forget your previous promise. Don't worry. Lin Xiaofeng moved his body and pulled Cheng Jiao into his arms. Their relationship was already very complicated. There were elements of love, family, and it was hard to let go of each other. The more complicated the relationship, the more sincere and solid it was. Cheng Jiao woke up at dinner time. Because of her injuries, she had been drinking soup, steamed buns and minced meat. During dinner time, Cheng Jiao was very calm. She and Lin Xiaofeng were in the same tent. Xiao Qing knew that she would tell Lin Xiaofeng everything. Then, Xiao Qing also entered the tent. Once in the tent, Xiao Qing found Dai sitting in the tent with his pants down to his knees. He lowered his head and looked at the area between his legs seriously. However, zombies really didn't have that kind of ability, except for the mutated zombie today. Xiao Qing looked at Dai's round and white exposed. He couldn't help but kick him. What are you doing? Luckily, Xiaotong is not here. Dai felt wronged. He pulled Xiao Qing's hand and touched it. Then, his hand was slapped away by Xiao Qing. Dai felt wronged. He stared at Xiao Qing as if to ask why he couldn't do what the tall zombie could do. Dai vaguely knew that what he saw before was the most intimate thing between a man and a woman. Subconsciously, he also wanted to do that with Xiao Qing. Unfortunately, his body wasn't strong enough. Xiao Qing pinched Dai's inner thigh and said coldly, "Go to sleep, or I'll chop it off." Dai immediately clamped his thighs and became very obedient. Xiao Qing pulled up his pants and sighed. "It's okay if you're at home, but don't take off your pants casually outside. It won't be good if other people see it." Dai nodded confusedly and cooperated with Xiao Qing to pull up his pants. Xiao Qing sometimes felt that Dai was a very possessive brat. However, he was also very strong. "Don't sleep tonight. Absorb it and see if you can break through." Xiao Qing stuffed a few high-level zombie crystal nuclei into Dumbo's hands. She didn't notice that there was a crystal nucleus of the zombie she had just killed today. Dai was also obedient. He put all the nuclei in the small pouch that Xiao Qing gave him a long time ago. Then, he took them out one by one to absorb them. When Xiao Tong came in with Little Bun, the family of 4 each took a nuclei and started to absorb them. The higher the level, the more energy they needed. Take Xiao Qing as an example. She was now at level 3. Absorbing level 1 zombie nuclei was almost useless to her. Level 2 zombie nuclei weren't very useful to her either. Only level 3 to level 4 nuclei were suitable for her to absorb. Low-level nuclei were useless. High-level nuclei couldn't be used. Level 3 or 4 nuclei were more suitable for her. However, level 3 or 4 zombie nuclei weren't easy to find. She only had one level 4 zombie nuclei. She still had a few level 3 nuclei. As for the level 4 one, she planned to absorb it when she returned to the base and was safe. For now, she just needed to absorb level 2 or 3 nuclei. The next morning, when they were ready to leave, Xiao Qing looked at Lin Xiaofeng's expression. She didn't find anything strange. Not all men could accept that their lover was raped. Some men would even push the blame to the woman. Even some people were like that. When a woman was raped, it must be because the woman was usually flirtatious, or came into contact with some hooligans, or went to some places that she shouldn't have. In short, it was the woman's fault. Xiao Qing had seen a lot of such things. She felt that Lin Xiaofeng, who was so calm, was still a man. She could blackmail him less when they went back. His teammates were all dead. His wife was raped by zombies. He was also seriously injured. He was quite pitiful. Of course, he owed her everything. They went back much faster than when they came. Of course, they wanted to relax. After all, in this huge post-apocalyptic world, the base was considered safe. In the base, they didn't have to worry about being bitten by zombies when they woke up in the middle of the night. They could also rest and relax. When they returned to the base, they bumped into the higher-ups of other bases. Xiao Qing took them to hand in the mission. When they handed in the mission, the girl in the mission hall was stunned. A Level 1 paranormal team with a terrible name completed a difficult mission without losing a single member. However, of the Level 3 paranormal team, only the captain and vice-captain were left. Wasn't this a miracle? All the rewards belonged to them. Lin Xiaofeng supported Cheng Zhao. He couldn't help but gasp when he spoke. The mission has been handed in. Captain Xiao, I'll take Zhao Zhao back first. I'll treat you to a meal next time. Xiao Qing watched Lin Xiaofeng leave. She was secretly happy. After all, they had been busy for so long. They had been on the verge of death several times. Finally, it was time to share the spoils. Just the reward points alone should be enough for their team to level up, right? Chapter 70. After a preliminary inspection, this is indeed the mission target's information. The information has been submitted to the higher-ups for review. The big-breasted girl sighed, but her actions were still quick. If the review passes, your Baby Meng team will become a Level 2 team. Please go to the wall over there to see the treatment of a Level 2 team. The rest of the rewards will be calculated and distributed this afternoon. Please come and collect them in time. Okay. Xiao Qing was very relaxed physically and mentally. She led her teammates back. The information was quickly handed over to the higher-ups. The head of the base was called Hao Yun. When the news was handed over, he was receiving the higher-ups from the Zhongbei survivor base. As soon as he heard that the information was in his hands, Hao Yun was very happy. Immediately hand it over to the research department to see if it is complete. To be able to find this information in a city occupied by zombies, your base is really full of strong people. The head of the Zhongbei survivor base was called Yan Pingshan. He was a man who looked to be in his late 20s. He looked very gentle and gave off the feeling of a university professor. He had a good temperament. Even if he stood in a group of people, he would still be very eye-catching. However, compared with the man next to him, he was immediately inferior. The man next to him looked a little smaller than him. His skin was exceptionally white. It was so white that it was a little bit morbid. It was as if he had not seen the sun for a long time. His facial features were delicate, but he did not look feminine. His eyebrows were a little sharp. The 3 buttons on his collar were neatly buttoned. His sitting posture was also as straight as a pine tree. His whole person exuded a sense of abstinence. It made people want to tear his clothes and break his calmness. Is it about the research on water purification? The man's voice was also a little cold. It was very clear. It was easy to associate it with the crisp sound of jade beads hitting white porcelain. Hao Yun did not hide anything. He smiled and said, "Yes, that's the information. I originally wanted to wait for my researchers to develop the technology and then announce it to the major survival bases." Yan Pingshan could not help but sneer. When the time came, would he really be willing to announce it? He was afraid that he would only be willing to use this information in exchange for benefits. Although he was well aware of it, Yan Pingshan still complimented him. Major General Hao is really broad-minded. Hao Yun was making excuses over there, and it was really annoying to watch. The man next to her acted as if he didn't know about this. He asked straightforwardly, "Can I see the information?" The atmosphere immediately froze for a moment. After a while, Hao Yun laughed and said, "Of course, but we have to wait for our researchers to verify it." After all, the information has just been brought back, and we don't know if it's complete yet. Anyway, you will be staying at the base for a few days, so there's no rush. He nodded stiffly. After dinner, they returned to their resting area. Yan Pingshan said helplessly, "Ah Shen, what did I tell you before we came?" "Don't talk." The man thought for a moment and then said with a serious face, "You actually told me not to speak?" Yan Pingshan was so angry that he wanted to laugh. "Do you know that I almost fell out with that narrow-minded Hao Yun today? You even told me not to speak. There was no expression on the man's face, but his eyes flashed with innocence. You told me not to talk. Yan Pingshan was speechless. I'm so angry because of you. Sigh, forget it. I've already said it. That's it. Yan Pingshan waved his hand helplessly. At this time, he didn't have any dignity to speak of. He carefully reminded, Meng Shen, you must remember. When I don't tell you to speak, you must not speak. The man named Meng Shen nodded and then sat at the table without speaking. Yan Pingshan couldn't help but walk around. We must get the information on the water purification. Otherwise, Hao Yun will definitely use it to threaten us in the future and gain some benefits. We can't do anything to Hao Yun. Maybe we can go and see the people who brought the information back? Maybe they have a backup. Meng Shan took a sip of water and looked at him without blinking. Yan Pingshan was in a bad mood. He slammed the table. Why didn't you say a word when you should have spoken? Meng Shen looked at the ripples in the cup and said slowly, You didn't tell me to speak. Yan Pingshan was speechless. I give up. Meng Shen paused for a moment and then said, Oh. Yan Pingshan was completely worn out. He muttered to himself, We should first check which team brought the information back. Then we can contact them in private. No, Hao Yun will be suspicious. Meng Shen slowly put down the teacup and said, Baby Meng. Baby Meng? Your cousin? Isn't he dead? Yan Pingshan was stunned for a moment and didn't react. Meng Shen was also led astray by his thoughts. He said, The team of ability users is called Baby Meng. Yan Pingshan finally reacted. He rolled his eyes without caring about his image. Why do they have such a name? This team leader must be a woman. Speaking of which, how did you know? When the girl came to deliver the information, I saw them. Baby Meng and Fierce Wind. Meng Shen said honestly. It's easy now that we have a name. Yan Pingshan touched his chin. Next, we have to think about how to get close to them. While they were thinking about how to get close to them, the other side was dividing the loot. All the zombie crystals were poured out and piled up into a small hill 1 meter high. There was even a sharp point. Shao Qing divided all the crystal stones into 6 piles, 1 for each of them. You can keep them however you want. I heard that zombie nuclei have become the most common currency when I came back. No matter if it's between bases or between ordinary people, these nuclei are almost all used. You can absorb them or spend them. You can do whatever you want with them. No one declined. They all put away their share and went home to eat. In the afternoon, they still had to collect their spoils of war. At that time, it would be time for them to split the loot. Shao Qing estimated that they would all become millionaires when they returned from this trip. After Yan Hanqing and the others went back to their room, Shao Qing brought the few brats into the room to eat. In the evening, she would try to absorb some of the level 4 zombie crystal to see if she could break through again. Even if she couldn't break through to level 4, she could at least improve her strength. It would be good for herself and the whole team. Chapter 71. The first day back in the base was the busiest. Sharing the loot took a lot of time. Lin Xiaofeng also sent people to deliver a lot of food and zombie crystals, not to mention other miscellaneous things. Lin Xiaofeng and Cheng Jiao were both badly injured, so they couldn't come over. They sent people to tell Shao Qing that they owed her a favor, and that if she needed anything, she should tell him. As long as he could do it, he wouldn't refuse. When they were sharing the loot, Gu Panpan still didn't understand. Sister Qing, why did you save him at that time? I don't like the whole team. Panpan, you need to think about the long term. Shao Qing rubbed Gu Ponpon's head. If the Fierce Wind squad had all died there, our squad would really be the ones who stood out when we returned to the base, the kind that would soar into the sky. In the future, no other squad of ability users would dare to team up with us. They would think, if a level 1 ability user squad didn't suffer a single casualty while a level 3 ability user squad was completely wiped out, then what did this level 1 ability user squad rely on to come back alive? We have the strength. Gu Pan Pan was very confused. They don't know. Xiao Qing chuckled and said, they will think that we climbed out of the base by stepping on Lin Xiaofeng's dead bodies. Of course, they will be wary of us in the future. Of course, the most important thing is that as the leader of a level 3 squad, Lin Xiaofeng must be filthy rich. You see, if he dies, how much can we take? If he's alive, we can take more. Gu Pan Pan nodded with starry eyes and said, I understand, Sister Qing. Let's move everything back. Come to my place for dinner tonight. Xiao Qing patted Gu Pan Pan and prepared to go out to see if there were any fresh vegetables and fruits. She wanted to exchange some for Gu Pan Pan and the others. After all, the food they ate every day was not fresh after such a long trip outside. It was time to reward everyone's stomachs. The fruits and vegetables grown in the base were very expensive, but they were fresh and tasted good. Xiao Qing and the others were all tycoons now, so they naturally didn't care about such a small amount of crystal stones. However, before going to buy vegetables, Xiao Qing planned to go to the market to see if there were any good military knives that were sharp and easy to use. Xiao Tong would get one for self-defense. In this way, Xiao Qing would be more at ease when she went out in the future. Xiao Qing strolled around the market, but she couldn't find a suitable military knife. In the end, she settled for the next best thing and bought a decent dagger. This dagger was small and exquisite. Xiao Tong could go back and polish it so that it would be convenient for her to carry around. After buying the dagger, she was about to leave. When she turned around, she saw a lot of cosmetics on the stall opposite. She thought that Gu Pan Pan was at the age where she loved to look beautiful. As for Xiao Tong, she would grow up soon. Should she buy some cosmetics and give them to them? In this day and age, it was already very difficult to survive. Who would still care about cosmetics? Therefore, these things were particularly worthless in the post-apocalyptic world. The total value of the cosmetics in this stall might not even be worth half a kilogram of food. Thinking that it was not expensive anyway, Xiao Qing walked over. As soon as she squatted down, a person squatted down next to her and picked up a small bag with dark seeds in it. How much is this? The stall owner glanced at that person and stretched out 2 fingers. That person nodded and took out 2 level 1 zombie crystals. Xiao Qing couldn't help but facepalm. Which family did this young master come from? It seemed that he was well protected in the post-apocalyptic world. How could he be so stupid? However, she didn't want to remind him. She would be hated for ruining other people's business. Besides, she didn't know this person. Meng Shen gave the crystals to the stall owner. When he picked up the seeds, he was very happy. Most of the seeds were grain crops in the north. They were rarely seen in the south. Now that the post-apocalyptic climate was strange, he wanted to take them back and try planting them. If they could be planted, he could ask the base to buy a lot of seeds back. They would have enough to eat next year. Do you still have such seeds? Yes, of course. The stall owner was also overjoyed. His family grew these things, and he had left behind countless old seeds. Previously, he had been considering whether he should just eat them as food, but today, he had actually gotten himself a sucker for a fool. Now, his head was full of 3 words. I'm rich. Can you take them all? If the quantity is not too much, I'll take them all. Meng Shen turned over the seeds and crushed them. After the skin was broken, the white part exposed was very tender. When he pinched it, it felt moist. After paying attention to the soil and temperature, there should be no problem for them to germinate. The only thing to worry about was whether they could bear fruit. If he took more seeds back, he could test it a few more times. Xiao Qing looked at Meng Shen as if she was looking at an idiot. His appearance was not bad, and his voice was also quite nice. It was a pity that there was something wrong with his brain. I'll go back and get them after I'm done. Xiao Qing picked 2 cosmetics and an eyebrow pencil. How much are these? The stall owner was probably addicted to scamming her, so he stretched out 2 fingers. Xiao Qing narrowed her eyes. Did he think that she was also a brainless idiot? How dare he try to scam her? Wasn't he a bit too bold? The stall owner looked at Xiao Qing's murderous eyes and suddenly realized that Xiao Qing was not Meng Shen. She was wearing the paranormal badge of the base. Was he looking for trouble? Even if Xiao Qing didn't do anything to him, she would ruin Meng Shen's business. It was enough for him to cry. He didn't dare to take revenge. So the stall owner hurriedly said, I don't want any crystal stones. How can I take your crystal stones for these things? Just give me something to eat. Xiao Qing gave him half a pack of compressed biscuits. In fact, she also felt that half a pack was too much, but it was too troublesome to open it. After taking the things, Xiao Qing took one last look at Meng Shen. She couldn't help but sigh. How could a good-looking person be retarded? Sure enough, God opened a window for you and closed the door for you. Meng Shen didn't understand why he was being stared at. In the end, he didn't pay much attention to it. He followed the stall owner to get the seeds. The stall owner closed the stall and stopped doing business. He happily took Meng Shen back to get the seeds. Xiao Qing returned home and gave the seeds to Gu Pan Pan and Xiao Tong. Then she got a kiss from them. Dai was angry. He pulled Xiao Tong away and pulled Gu Pan Pan away. He leaned over and kissed Xiao Qing's left cheek and Xiao Qing's right cheek. He was satisfied when he covered the marks left by Gu Pan Pan and Xiao Tong. Xiao Qing. Chapter 72. After splitting the loot, they went back to their own homes to sleep in satisfaction. On the other side, they had just found some clues. Yan Pingshan flipped through the list again, and then muttered with a little doubt, "This whatever baby Meng metahuman team doesn't even have a single dead person?" I took a look at this name list. There are people in their teens and a few years old. If I didn't know beforehand that they were a team of metahumans, I would have thought that they were more like square dancers. Meng Shen stood at the side and didn't say a word. In the afternoon, he brought back a bunch of seeds, and then he was scolded by Yan Pingshan. This bunch of seeds couldn't even be used on a single zombie crystal nucleus, but Meng Shen had used more than 10 of them. Even if his family was rich, he couldn't afford to lose like this. Yan Pingshan was so angry that he cried out in pain, holding his chest for the entire afternoon. However, Meng Shen just looked at him with an especially innocent gaze, as if he had done something unforgivable. Yan Pingshan was even angrier. He shouldn't have brought Meng Shen out this time. If he didn't bring Meng Shen out, he wouldn't have been angered to death more than 10 times along the way. If he didn't bring Meng Shen out, he might have been a little more clear-headed. If he didn't bring Meng Shen out, he wouldn't have lost so many crystals. In the end, looking at Meng Shen's calm and innocent expression, Yan Pingshan almost couldn't catch his breath and passed out just like that. Fortunately, at this time, he found the information about Baby Meng and the Fierce Wind metahuman team, which distracted Yan Pingshan's attention. The information was very clear. When they received the mission, Baby Meng's team was just a metahuman team that had been established for less than 24 hours. As for the Fierce Wind metahuman team, it was the oldest and one of the highest-level metahuman teams in this base. But in the end, as a newly formed Level 1 metahuman team, Baby Meng's metahuman team did not lose a single member, not even a single injured member. As for the Gale metahuman team, only the captain and vice-captain were left. One of them was unconscious and the other one was heavily injured. Who would believe that? Yan Pingshan concluded at that time, this team of mutants called Baby Meng is really something. It's definitely not simple. I think it's very likely that they were the ones who found the information. It was unknown when Meng Shan had appeared behind Yan Pingshan. Then, he pointed at the information in Yan Pingshan's hands and said, "I know this woman. I saw her today." Yan Pingshan followed his finger and saw that Meng Shan was pointing at Xiao Qing, the leader of Baby Meng Shen's team. His eyes lit up. "You know her?" "I saw her when I went shopping today," Meng Shen said with certainty. Because Xiao Qing was very beautiful, even for someone like him who put all his heart and soul into research, he could not help but take a few more glances at her. At the mention of shopping, Yan Pingshan's face darkened. He decisively stuffed the information into Meng Shen's hands and said, "Since you've seen her, then it's easy. Take the information and take a good look at it. I'll leave the matter of getting close to her to you, and I heard that she's a widow." Meng Shen did not understand what Yen Pingshen was implying at all. When he was holding the information, he was still at a loss. Then, Yen Pingshen ran away, leaving him standing there in a daze. After a long time, Meng Shen finally reacted. He opened the information and found the one with Xiao Qing's picture. Then, he looked at Xiao Qing's information and slowly said, "Xiao Qing." Xiao Qing sneezed. Then, she was surprised that as a zombie, she actually had the prelude to a cold. Then, she stuffed her son into Dai's arms and began to absorb the level 4 zombie nucleus. She removed all distracting thoughts from her mind and began to slowly absorb the energy from the zombie nuclei. The energy slowly flowed into her body. She could vaguely feel that after the energy had made a circle in her body, it would all enter her head, which was where the nucleus was located. Usually, when she used her superpower, the energy was released from the nucleus and then flowed around her body. Xiao Qing thought that it was probably because the nucleus absorbed the energy of other nuclei, and then it would slowly fill up. When it reached a certain level, the nucleus would be full, and then it would be upgraded. The nucleus would become bigger, and then it would hold more energy. The process of becoming stronger was to expand the size of the nucleus. The bigger the nucleus, the more energy it could hold, so it would be stronger. At least, it should be like that for superpowered people. As for zombies, they seem to be able to absorb energy from flesh and blood to evolve. Just like the variety of superpowered people, zombies also had different variations. Similarly, both superpowered people and zombies were constantly becoming stronger. Xiao Qing suddenly had an idea. What if she used the absorbed energy to strengthen her body? After all, every time when she was on the verge of upgrading, she would be stuck. There would be a long period of time when she was on the verge of a breakthrough, but she could not break through. At that time, would it be better to use the absorbed energy to strengthen her body? After all, when she was on the verge of a breakthrough, most of the absorbed energy couldn't be contained by the nucleus. It would either be used or scattered, which was very wasteful. Only a small part of it would be used to slowly expand the capacity of the nucleus. This idea went round and round in Xiao Qing's mind, and it kept tempting her. In the end, Xiao Qing decided to give it a try. She didn't use the level 4 nucleus stone, but took out a level 1 zombie nucleus stone. She tried to absorb it into her body, but the energy involuntarily circulated in her body, and then it entered the nucleus in her head. Xiao Qing tried several times, but the result was the same. The energy would enter the nucleus by itself. She suddenly felt a little discouraged. She even considered if she should first absorb the level 4 nucleus stone to see if she could reach the edge of a breakthrough, and then try again. Would it be easier that way? But she gave up, and decided to try a few more times. After absorbing dozens of level 1 zombie nucleus stones, Xiao Qing had a little grasp of the rhythm. She thought for a moment. When the energy was transferred out of the nucleus, it would be obedient to her, but when it was just absorbed into her body, it was not obedient at all. The reason was very likely that after the energy entered her nucleus, it would be assimilated and then imprinted with her spirit mark. Spirit was an illusory thing. Only psychic paranormals like Xiao Tong could truly control it. Xiao Qing tried again and again, but failed again and again. When the sky was about to turn white, she felt her spirit power for the first time. This was already a big progress. Xiao Qing breathed a sigh of relief. She took out the level 4 nucleus stone and absorbed it for a while, preparing to wait until night to fight again. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.